is Coast to Coast AM, and I'm Art Bell. Back from the flu, sort of. And I say sort of because I've still got a temperature running around 100, but we've got a lot to do, so let's get down to it. A powerful earthquake, as you know by now, rocked the Northwest today, shattering windows, showering bricks into sidewalks, sending terrified crowds running into the streets of Seattle and Portland, Oregon. Despite the 6.8 magnitude, damage and injuries were relatively minor, which experts attribute to the quake's depth. About 75 people treated in hospitals in Seattle and Olympia. There was one fatality they're attributing to a heart attack. Still, the quake temporarily shut down the Seattle airport, knocked out power for hundreds of thousands of people, cracked the dome atop the state capitol in Olympia, and briefly trapped about 30 people atop the swaying Space Needle, 605 feet above the city. That must have been quite a ride for those folks. Let's get straight to it. We've got a number of people lined up to talk to you. First is Jim Birkland. You know Jim very well indeed. He was the county geologist for Santa Clara County for 20 years. As far as I know, back then, the only official county geologist. And I want to get a word or two from Jim about what happened today. Jim Birkland, hey, how you doing?
Howdy, Art. Well, this is pretty big news, and those that watch the website know that it was predicted by my site master, Will Fletcher.
And in what manner was it predicted, Jim?
It was the second highest tide period of the month, what I call a secondary window. I handled the primary windows, and he handles the secondary windows, which then constitute half of the time. But if you go back for the start of the year, we have had 7 major quakes, and 7 of 7 have been in a window. And chance would say, only half. And there have been 11 quakes of at least 6.6, counting today's. And 10 of the 11 have been in the window, far exceeding any chance.
Well, while the news officially here, the Associated Press, sort of seems to suggest there wasn't a lot of damage. I was watching CNN actually when the story broke, and I've watched the damage from the helicopters all day long, and the damage to me looks pretty damn bad.
They're talking $1 billion, and I could believe it.
$1 billion.
Yeah, and you remember they said only a few injured. Now it's up to 250 injured and 1 death. It's a lot more facts will come out as people see them.
Why was this so damaging?
Well, because it was so big and so close to town. The only fortunate thing is that it was 30 miles deep instead of 12 miles deep like the World Series quake was.
If it had been 12 miles deep instead of 30, what would have been the difference?
Maybe 1,000 deaths.
1,000 deaths.
Yeah.
And the magnitude measured at the epicenter then?
Well, it's 6.8. We've heard everywhere. It started out as 6.2, 6.1. And
no. What I was asking a dummy question, and that was, if it was closer to the surface, would the magnitude measured have been greater?
No, but the intensity would be greater. That's where the popular confusion is. Intensity is what happens to people and things. And, for example, intensity 5, small objects knocked over. Intensity 7, chimneys crack and some topple. And people feel it in motor cars. They used to have the old modified Mercalli scale. But it's the energy is measured by magnitude. And so that every quake should have just one total energy. It's like how many sticks of dynamite were involved. Then for the intensity, it was how close were you to the explosion, what kind of wall was between you and the explosion, that sort of thing.
And then is the Richter scale, in a way, I'm just sitting here thinking about what you're saying, is the Richter scale really a totally reasonable way to predict how much damage there's going to be by the Richter reading?
Well, they're related, but you could have a Richter 8 out in the middle of the Pacific, far away from any islands, and if it didn't have a tsunami, well, you wouldn't have any damage.
Oh, yes, but I'm just referring to the depth now. The same given area, if the depth is different, the damage is going to be very different.
Yeah, the deeper the quake, the better it is locally, but the more widely, the greater section of the Earth feels the quake.
So then being as close to Seattle as it was, if it had been at 12 miles, they'd have been that many miles closer to the epicenter. It would have been that much worse. Oh, I'll be doggone. I just learned something.
Now, you may remember about 4 years ago, they had an 8 magnitude quake down in Bolivia. It was felt in Toronto, felt in Texas. There never was a South American quake felt in North America before, but it was so deep, and it was like 600 miles deep.
I remember that quake.
But it didn't do any damage in Bolivia. Everybody just took a ride.
Well, there sure was a lot of damage in this one, boy. I'll bet you the people in Seattle really, really are kind of on edge tonight. And if you'll pause 1 second, I've got one of those people right here. Peter Davenport, well known to most of my listeners, is where else, of course, at the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle. Morning, Peter.
Good evening, Art.
That's right. It is evening still.
It was quite a ride this morning, and I've just learned about all I know about earthquakes from Jim's description of magnitude and intensity. All I can tell you is that I'm glad it wasn't the magnitude and the intensity were no greater than they were this morning, because we had quite a ride up here.
Well, what kind of ride? Describe it.
Well, several things. There was an initial shock. And within a second or two, I looked at my watch. It occurred about 10:54:40, 54 minutes and 40 seconds after 10
Great
o'clock.
presence of mind.
Pardon?
Great presence of mind to be able to look at your watch.
Well, I was running from the windows when that occurred. I hit the power button on my protector, the power transformer up here for my computer, and headed for the center of the building. One thing I noticed, Art, I had a tall stack of newspapers stacked against a southern wall.
Right.
And they were quickly propelled to the north. But interestingly, I had a pair of snow skis perched against a northern wall, quite precariously, it turns out. They weren't disturbed at all. It quickly led me to conjecture that the shock may have come from the south of Seattle, and apparently that was the case.
Is that a reasonable assumption, Jim?
Very, very good. That's how the original seismograph by the Chinese a couple thousand years ago was devised.
Really?
The little lion's heads, dragon heads with a little ball, and then they would drop off in a little pot. And whichever pot would have the ball in them, they know the direction was the opposite.
There you go, Peter. Dead on.
We had a cheap one. I've actually seen those devices in Peking. They're very interesting, and I'm not sure we've improved all that much in the last 2,000 years.
Certainly not an earthquake prediction.
Yeah. Interestingly, there was a stirring sensation to this, and that's reinforced by the fact that some of the drawers in my desks, which run east and west, were also slightly ajar. And I've spent all day trying to figure out how to come up with an equivalent or an analogy to what happened, but the closest I can get is being a grain of sand in the bottom of a gold panner's gold pan as he swirls it with water. The pan going one direction, the water going another, and the grain of sand still in a third direction. It was really a very, very interesting experience. I'm sure people who have been through these know perfectly well what I'm talking about, and of course scientists understand it, I'm sure, too.
Feeling of helplessness.
Exactly.
Wow.
I found there were both physical sensations and shortly thereafter psychological or emotional reactions, like being propelled into a different part of space or time in a matter of a few seconds.
You'll re-experience that over the next few days, wondering if you've just had another quake.
Yeah, I've sensed that already, Jim. At 11:34 this morning, just about 40 minutes after the original event, I was sitting on my couch watching the news, and I had the sensation of another shock, but apparently the seismology lab here at the University of Washington, not 15 or 20 minutes walk from where I'm sitting, recorded that there were no aftershocks. So I would chalk that up to a psychological reaction.
Oh, yeah, that's very natural.
Your house not cracked? You got away with all this? Or
not as far as I know. I actually was moving away from the periphery of my apartment, assuming that the part closest to the center of the building would be the most durable. But that gives our listeners some idea of just how intense this was. And you know, we really, really dodged a bullet up here this morning. The overseer to this planet chose to smile on Seattle this first day of Lent, I believe, because just 8 hours before this quake occurred, we had 50,000 or so young people in downtown Seattle engaging in all sorts of debauchery, and that was the heart of the area of the city where most of the damage occurred.
You know what, Peter, my wife said, see, they did it. They didn't quit at midnight the way they were supposed to, and now look.
Well, there have been a lot of reports of edgy and antagonistic people and road rage. I have, on my website, a number of people reported these things from the Northwest in the last week.
Yeah. That comes under the category of the emotional part of this. Listen, I'm way short on time. Peter, I want to thank you, brother.
Thank
for
you.
coming on. I know you were right in the middle of it, and take it easy the next few days.
It was quite a ride. We got lucky this time. Thanks for the time.
Take care, Peter, and I'll tell you what, if you'll hold on just a moment, Jim, we'll get right back to you.
Okay.
All right, stay right there. Jim Birkland, who was a county geologist for Santa Clara County for 20 years, will remain with us through the half hour. Ghost to Ghost will happen tonight. Bear with us. Yeah, that kind of a night, huh? Good morning. This is Art Bell once again, and here is Jim Birkland again. Jim, the interesting thing that I thought Peter hit on was the emotional aspect of this.
Oh, yes.
You know, what it actually does to your psyche. The earth moving under your feet is the most out-of-control feeling I've ever felt. We had a 7.3 here in the desert that really rocked and rolled us, so I know exactly what it feels like.
Well, the World Series quake of 7.1 is the only quake that ever frightened me. I wasn't too sure the county building was going to withstand it. And I had those same, what do you call them, Vietnam re-flash, what do you call those things?
Flashback.
Flashback, yeah. Yeah, and they last for a long time. But there were also flashes ahead, and you mentioned when you talked to me earlier today about one you had, but here's a couple that I had. This is February 26th from Jeannie and Maltby. Just returned to the vet with Mountain Man, her dog. A clean bill of health. His depression is not related to anything physical. Now I have to clean my bird cage tonight, and I'm dreading it. All of them are cranky, and I'm not looking forward to getting bitten. I'm experiencing right ear pain as I coast right now and have had strange pains on the top of my head intermittently today. I don't usually get headaches on the top of my head, and every time I think it's going to really develop into something, it goes away. I honestly have a feeling something local is brewing. And then the next day, from Georgia, Digital Dave. The biggest something just hit me that I've ever experienced. It lasted at least 60, maybe 90 seconds, and happened at 04:01 Eastern Standard Time. In all seriousness, I could barely move while it was happening. I'm sending out an alert because if it is a quake, it's a really bad one. And I got about 10 responses to that by other people.
Now, I have no idea what to attribute this predictive capability to. I don't have the slightest idea, but we are creatures like the ones that run around before earthquakes, you know, the little four-legged ones.
Electromagnetic.
But yeah, we're creatures too. Coming back to that again. I've got something I want you to hear, so just take a listen to this. This was on my show, February 12th of 2001. In other words, well, what the hell's today? Let's see. Today is going into March 1st. And springtime approaches. So this wasn't right on the money, but this was as close as you're going to want to get. This is a caller to my show. This is why we took predictions on the air only. It was a caller to my show, 212 of 01. Listen to this. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, hi, Art. This
Hi.
is Reba calling from Colville.
Hello, Reba.
And I'm calling because my prediction is something that I've seen for the last 17 years, and that is that there will be a devastating earthquake. I know it will be Seattle area, but I believe it will be the entire West Coast. And this spring, and it will be in the morning, on a bright, beautiful, sunshiny day.
Wow. Anything that would be in the Seattle area and would affect the entire West, well, I don't know how much of Seattle would be left.
I don't know either, but it's very alarming, and that's why I moved all the way to Colville.
Colville, huh?
Yep.
And you think you would escape there?
And I'm all the way up on the 3,500-foot level.
So you honestly made a decision to leave the Seattle area because you were worried about an earthquake?
I saw it vividly. I saw what happened to my mobile home where I was living.
What did happen to it?
It was destroyed. It was destroyed. And
far more mobile pieces.
it was flat. I mean, it went down a hill and it was flat. And the funny thing was that when they disconnected my mobile home from the foundation, that very night there was a 5-point quake in Auburn, and my mobile home slid back and forth on the bricks, you know, the bricks that are underneath the support.
Yeah.
It scared the living daylights out of us so bad we didn't spend the night in the house. But no, that is what I saw. And I've seen it over and over. And every time I see it, every year that goes by, it's like I'm closer to the leaves on the alder trees. And it's like I couldn't be any closer now than if I became the leaf. So And I do believe that it's possible that Popo is involved in this. All I know is that, we will feel it all the way over here.
Well, that might be enough for me.
So
I think I'd probably
it was serious.
myself.
Yeah, it was serious enough that yes, I moved here 5 years ago, and I couldn't get out fast enough. And I made sure that I was up at the 3,500 foot level when I moved.
And you now believe it to be very close.
Oh yes. Oh, yes.
Well, I'm sure all the people listening in Seattle are real happy to hear this.
Well, I should think to be forewarned is to be forearmed.
It is. It is. But I mean, if you have, a house you've paid a lot of money for and have a big mortgage on and a job and the kids are in school and you're really involved in your community, it's not necessarily something you want to hear, but fair enough.
Oh, I believe that the kids will be out of school by the time this happens, or at least I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope so. And I hope people take it serious.
All right.
I do.
Sleepless, I'm sure, in Seattle. Thank you. All right, there it was. How do you account for predictions like that?
20 years ago, I would have said, oh, that's just coincidence. But I have become a believer. There are such things as psychic people. I've seen a number of these psychic predictions come true. And, okay, that was so close.
I know.
Yeah. Just like on my website there, ScissorGJob.com, people can see what people have been saying. So they're all the past messages are there. And the birds were going crazy, and
nobody's ever going to remember ScissorGJob.com. So we're getting a link up. If you would please, Chief, get a link up.
Let me tell you what happened. The last time there was a quake almost as strong. I mean, it was stronger than that. You have to go back to 1949 on April 13th. The day after the eclipse of the moon and the day after the closest approach of the moon for the month, there was a very good seismic window. This earthquake caused heavy damage over a wide area in Washington and Oregon. 8 persons were killed, many were injured. Total damage was estimated about $25 million in 1949 dollars. At Olympia, nearly all large buildings were damaged and water and gas mains were broken. A half-mile section of a 300-foot cliff toppled into Puget Sound near Tacoma. Many towns reported toppled chimneys, cracked walls, and fallen plaster. Felt area extended eastward to western Montana and southward to Cape Blanco, Oregon, magnitude 7.1. Now, I understood this one was felt in Salt Lake City, which really is a long ways away. But that's how deep it was, yeah.
Jim, what is ahead? Is there anything else major that we should be watching out for anytime soon?
This is a bad year. Having 7 magnitude 7s already, and in 1989 when we had the World Series quake, we only had 6 major quakes all year. And here's 2 months and we've had 7.
But again, immediately ahead, Jim.
Yes. March 7th through 14th is the next really good window. And what I call a seismic window. And again, I'm just getting out my newsletter tomorrow. It'll be in the mail. And I'm calling for another 3 to a 5.5 in the Seattle area. And
Seattle, gee.
Yeah. But after this, I mean, I wrote this up before the main shock. And so you're bound to have aftershocks, even though they're quite correct in saying with these deeper earthquakes, you get fewer aftershocks. That's because down there's less water and the pressure is so great. It usually doesn't give you smaller quakes. It waits until it gets enough energy to give you a big quake.
Asking you why we're having so many quakes. In fact, they're all around me. I don't know if you've been watching the maps, but they're all around. Oh, man. So, asking you why we're suddenly having so many, probably not a productive question, huh?
Well, yes. We're at a solar max. That's one thing. And if you took the greatest solar flares in the last 30 years, tied for 4th place, were 2 in 1984 and in 1989, and both were within 2 days of the strongest 2 quakes in the Bay Area since 1911.
All right, hold on to something strong, folks. How do people get your newsletter?
Well, they can send me a sample. I'll send them a sample copy. If they send me a business-sized envelope with a couple of dollars in it, and I'll mail them a recent copy of Syzygy. They must mail it to P.O. Box 1926, Glen Ellen, just like the wine, 2 words, Glen, capital ELLEN, California, 95442.
Or to do it again real fast.
P.O. Box 1926. Glen Ellen, Cal, 95442.
All right. Jim, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, Art. Sure great to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Good night, Jim.
Night.
That's Jim Birkland, who was the county geologist, the official one for Santa Clara County for 20 years. And I don't know what to tell you up there in Seattle. Hang on, folks. I'm Art Bellin from the high desert. This is Coast to Coast AM. That'd be me, all right, and it certainly is a weird night. Nights are strange. I can't tell you what's different, but certainly isn't the same as the daytime, is it? Good morning. Covering what has happened in Seattle, and in a moment, covering something that happened in Florida that connects directly to the Ghost to Ghost show that we're going to be doing tonight. So stay right where you are. Dark nights just like these, huh? My affiliate in Cleveland, Ohio, is one of the nation's great old, gigantic clear channel radio stations, WTAM 1100 in Cleveland. For that same radio station, there is a reporter. Mark Schwab is his name. That's SCHWAB. He's a sports news and sports reporter. And I began getting faxes, emails and faxes a couple of weeks ago, maybe not that long ago, and as we were contemplating the Ghost to Ghost program, people would write and say, did you know that there was a major incident with a sports reporter for WTAM? And I kept getting them, and finally, of course, I decided to call WTAM in Cleveland and find out what was going on, and here's the guy who can tell us, Mark Schwab. Mark, welcome.
Top of the very early morning to you, Art, from Central Florida.
To you as well. WTAM had sent you to Florida to do what?
Cover the Indians, spring training with the flagship home of the tribe, and the Indians happen to be my beat, so when spring training rolls around, I pack up, head to Winter Haven, Florida, where they practice and get ready for the season, and stay there until the season starts.
Oh, well, so then you're the guy who kind of looks them over and gives Cleveland a preview of what their team might or might not do.
Exactly.
Uh-huh. How do they look, by the way?
On paper, they're excellent. On paper, they're excellent. They lost some guys, they brought some new guys in, and now, it's whether or not the new faces blend with the old, the team chemistry clicks, and a few questions in the pitching staff get ironed out, but there's so many question marks that a few of the ifs are bound to pan out, so they should be all right this year.
All right, so how long then? You stay there a total of how long?
I flew in on February 15th. I go home March 30th.
What did you do? Rent an apartment or stay in a hotel or what?
They went to a country club and rented one big house.
Oh.
For all of us to stay in, because I'm down here, and then eventually our show hosts will trickle in, and they'll do shows from down here, so there'll be more than one of us here eventually. There'll be 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, so they just rented one big house and put us all in there.
One big house?
One big house.
And therein lies, I guess,
the issue.
Actually, I've got to tell you now, my emails could have been wrong, but they said that you got so scared, so freaked out over whatever it was that was happening that you refused to stay in the house.
Yeah, it got to the point I left one morning at 4:15 in the morning after hearing about an hour's worth of stuff. And, it was kind of funny because I'm so skeptical and hard-headed about this kind of stuff. I still don't believe in it. I don't know. It was, I'm usually the first person to tell someone they're an idiot or on crack when they say their house is haunted. So it took a bit for me to finally get out of there.
Well, it's a long trip from they've got to be on crack to I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So what the heck happened?
All right. I flew in on a Thursday, which was the 15th. The main event, I guess you could say, it really started to hit the fan on Sunday night, but for the 4 days prior, I just noticed it was a noisy house. Some houses are noisy, appliances are loud, or you'll hear creaks or whatever, and those are just house noises.
Yeah, I've been in houses with bad pipes, and they're creepy. They make creepy sounds.
Yeah. It was weird, though, because I'd be in the living room on the couch, and it would sound like somebody was walking in the bedroom down the hall. It sounded like there would be a second person in there, but I just wrote it off as noise and figured, whatever. You're the only one here. Just don't worry about it.
And you knew you weren't doing lines of crack or whatever.
Yeah, you know, and I've never touched a drug in my life, and I barely drink, so.
All right. So,
So let's go through 4 days of that, and then Sunday night, technically Monday morning, 3:04 a.m., an alarm clock goes off. And I thought it was mine at first because I had to get up at 7, looked up, it wasn't 7 o'clock, and it wasn't my alarm. It was one in a bedroom down the hall, a room that I hadn't been in 3 days, and a clock that I had never touched.
mm-hmm.
So I roll running down the hall, I turned this thing off, and how did this get on? And I thought somebody maybe had broke into the place. So I looked over the place, and nobody was in, the doors are still locked. I said, okay, I went back to bed, and I'm laying in there. And it's driving me nuts. How did that clock get on?
Mm-hmm.
So I start hearing noise. Sounds like footsteps. Yeah, like somebody's walking in the living room or walking through a bedroom. I'm thinking, there is somebody in this place.
But still, even at that point, a logical mind would say somebody's breaking in.
Yeah.
Or had you already gone past that, you knew nobody was in? I mean, where was your head at that?
At this point, I knew I had looked over and I didn't see anybody, but not really one to assume, it must be a ghost. The logical explanation to me is there's got to be somebody in here and I just didn't see him.
Sure.
So I'm listening, and I'm still hearing every once in a while what sounds like people walking around. And for about 10, 15 minutes of listening to this, from laying in my bed, I could see a little night light plugged in down the hall. And it's one of those really cheap night lights that just plug right into the wall, and there's a little bulb on it that lights up orange.
Yeah.
Must be like a half a candle power, and they've been around since like 1920.
I know the ones.
Okay. So there's one out there. And all of a sudden it just goes off like the flash bulb on a camera. It just goes off that bright. It gets dark. I'm thinking, what is that? And I figure, okay, bulb must have just been burning out. That was its last hurrah.
Right.
That's why it's dark now. But I still can't figure out why every once in a while I'm hearing footsteps. And then there's a sliding door next to the bed and leading out to the pool. And I hear this next to the sliding door. And the porch isn't closed, so I knew it couldn't have been anybody in there. So I'm like, what the?
Well, that would have been enough for me right there. That would have been my limit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I hear a swish, and I had no idea what that was. I'm thinking middle of the night, maybe I'm hearing stuff, I don't know. Well, I don't know, another 10, 15 minutes goes by, and it sounds like somebody, you know what it sounds like when you put a glass of water down on a counter?
Sure.
Okay, got that sound from a bathroom down the hall. And I'm like, what? And this is now reassuring to me that somebody is in the house. Somebody has broken in, I'm convinced. I still hear more footsteps every once in a while. Well, another 15, 20 minutes go by. The night light in the hall flashes up real bright again. There went my theory of the bulb had just burned out.
Oh, you mean, also, oh my, back to life.
Yeah, came again, real bright. And then it just died. So I'm laying there in bed, trying to justify all this. I look at the clock, and suddenly it's almost 4 a.m. No, it's past, I don't know, 4 o'clock, 4:05. And I'm like, I'm talking to myself now, Schwab, you've been awake an hour in the middle of the night, listening to the noises, and for whatever reason being scared. Nobody's in here, the doors are locked, shut up and go to sleep, you gotta be up early.
Sure.
So I roll over, shut my eyes, and then had them shut for about 15 seconds, and I will go to my grave, wearing the footsteps I heard in the hallway. Heard somebody walk into the bedroom and walk right up to the bed so close to it that I could have, reached out and grabbed them. Open my eyes, there's nobody there. Throw on the light, grab an iron, because it was the only thing I could find in the bedroom that resembled a weapon. Did a once-over of the place, couldn't find a soul. At that point, I didn't know what to do, so I just figured I gotta get out of here. I got dressed, threw on my contact lenses, and basically ducked out the back door, got in the car, and left.
And went, what, to a motel or something?
No, I went to a payphone.
Payphone.
I got it was about 4:10, 4:15, but by the time I got out of there, excuse me, Called my wife. I just woke her up. Just like, hon, just bear with me for a minute. Tell me if I'm crazy. So I relayed everything to her, and she's like, no, I would have got out of there a lot sooner than you did.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't know what I did. Went and got a cup of coffee, called a couple people, called my minister.
Your minister?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. What
He's a friend of the family.
And what did he say?
He said, I relayed everything to him. He's like, yep, sounds like you might have something in there. And as a Christian, you believe that they can't hurt you. They can scare you, but they can't harm you. So he told me that, and I had already knew that anyway. He basically reassured me. So that got me enough gumption to at least go back in around 7 o'clock. And
You went back?
well, I had to go to work.
Oh, I see.
And I had to throw on a change of clothes, and my work bag was still there. So I went in for about 5 minutes and changed and got out of there. Nothing happened when I was back. One of the other phone calls I made was to my boss,
I was going to say,
my program director,
who is your program director?
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis. So you called Ray.
I called Ray at home, and I'm like, Ray, you know me to be a pretty sane guy. He's like, yeah. So I told him everything, and he couldn't believe it. He he believed me, but he was laughing, but he believed me. He's like, you got to understand, this does sound kind of funny back from our end. I'm like, yeah, I can imagine. So he knows this girl who is a paranormal expert, who apparently has been on our station before and done stuff with our station before. Her name was Marianne. So he called Marianne, and he said, she can find out just being on the phone with you whether or not they're in there, or if you're just crazy. I'm like, all right, great. Hopefully she'll tell me I'm crazy and I can just go on with life. And so he arranges it that at 3:10 that afternoon on our afternoon drive show, I'll be on with Mike, who was our show host, and Marianne will be on the phone too. So 3:10 rolls around. I go back to the house, not knowing what to expect. Everything was cool. Nobody, I walked in, I didn't have anything throwing stuff at me.
Yeah.
So I get on the phone, I recount my story to Mike, and everyone is listening. He thinks I'm half nuts, and then she starts to tell me what's up. She's like, well, I'll tell you this, where's the room with the twin beds? I'm like, I never told you I had twin beds. So.
Did you tell anybody?
No.
No, okay.
No. So she's like, well, one is in there. It's a female. She's around 55. I'm like, oh, all right. Great. No, that was a male. I'm sorry. That was 55. She said, I see like some kind of a split dresser with a mirror or something. I'm like, that's in the master bedroom. She's like, well, that's where the other one is. That's a female, around the same age. I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm like officially freaked out.
And this is all on the air.
This is on the air, which, by the way, was about the only thing keeping me sane through this afternoon. So she tells me then, there's something on the sink like a bag. I said, yeah. At first I said no, and then I saw the bag, and she said, all right, she has moved. She is now there. And is there something like a bookshelf or maybe an entertainment center somewhere in their room? And there was an entertainment center with a TV in it. That was behind me. And she's like, okay, he's moved. He's now there, which would put them bookending me on each side of me by about 5 feet.
So she's following them foot for foot around the house.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
So I'm like, look to my left, look to my right. I'm like, so there's one on each side of me. She said, yes. And apparently that made them aware that I was aware of them, because then the swishing sound, which she had told me earlier in the conversation, the swishing sound that I heard the night before was them moving. So the swishing sound then all of a sudden picked up. Just.
While you were on the air?
While I'm on the air. Now, I had no windows open, no air conditioning on, no doors open. And for anyone that said, and I was trying to say at first, that's just a breeze. Still trying to convince myself that nothing was going on, but breezes don't turn corners. Breezes don't go straight and hook a right.
No, that's right.
So it was picking up. Just they're flying all over the place.
Oh my God! So
I'm on the air with them, and I'm kind of and Mike would be talking to Marianne saying, so what are they going to do? Are they going to come after one? And I would occasionally be like, hey, they're moving again. Here's what's going on. And I was on with Mike for about an hour.
A full hour of this.
A full hour of this stuff.
Great.
I was on hold and ready to hang up during our 4 o'clock newscast, which would have been around the clock, top of the hour, been an hour. And all of a sudden I hear a water faucet in the bathroom down the hall just like start to run a little bit of water.
Nobody else is in the house?
Nobody else is in the house. And then I start hearing all this splashing.
Splashing.
Now I'm trying to think what the heck that is. And then it hits me. The pool is behind me.
Uh-huh.
And nobody was in the pool. The pool was enclosed. Nobody could have got into it. I didn't have a neighbor nearby with kids in a pool. All this splashing and stuff going on. I'm like, great. They're swimming.
Yeah, they're swimming.
Wonderful. So I packed up. They told me they were sending me what are called smudge sticks, which I guess is like an incense that bothers the ghost.
Oh, to hell with that. Get out of the house.
Well, I did for now. For then, I got out. They were telling me, my boss told me they had overnighted them to me. So I hung up, left, spent the night in a hotel.
Wait a minute. Your boss thought you were supposed to take, he was ordering you to take the smudge sticks and go back to the house?
The next day.
I don't think so.
Well, I ended up doing it.
Very well.
I'm on the air with them. My wife hears me. She can tell I'm freaked out. She flies down, spends the night with me in the hotel, come back the next day with our smudge sticks. We light these things up. We're going through the house, and as we're putting them in each room, we can feel the ghost or whatever
taking
blow past me, out of the room.
Oh my God. Holy mackerel. So, bottom line, you rid the house of them with the smudge sticks?
You know what? I guess it knocks them out because we put them in every room. And then I called Mary Ann back, the paranormal expert, and I said, all right, so what's going on? She's like, well, one's in the bedroom and it's pretty well knocked out. That's her. And the guy's out in the garage and he's not doing so well either. I'm like, all right, great. So they were hammered or drunk, stoned, whatever you want to call them. I don't know.
Probably pissed off.
Well, yeah, man, you know what? Enjoy. So I took that opportunity to pack up all my stuff, got out of there, and haven't been back since. And I don't plan on.
When you told your boss you weren't going back, I mean, that's it. I'm out of there.
Well, at first at first we didn't know, because fortunately the folks at the country club place were nice enough to believe us, and they just got us a new house. But at first, we didn't know if that was going to be the case.
So you had to tell them this whole story and get them to believe you?
Yeah, and fortunately they believed us, and then we sent them a cassette of the hour I was on with Mike and the paranormal girl, and that might have helped to convince them anyway. So they got us a new house, but it was up for a couple days. We didn't know what we were going to do. I spent 2 nights in a hotel, and my boss was like, well, you just might have to keep using these smudge sticks every 2-3 days. We'll have somebody come in and bless the house. I'm like, no, I am not staying there.
Enough is enough, right?
Well, yeah, it was, they also paged me. That was the other thing. When I got into the house, when I checked in that Thursday, 5 minutes after I had been there, my pager went off. 8888. And I didn't think anything of it. I figured somebody paged me a toll-free number, and I never got the rest of it. I called my boss, called a couple friends, somebody had paged me, and I just disregarded it and moved on. After I hung up with Mike that day on the afternoon show, when Mary Ann had said they're here, and I had heard all the swishing, I hung up, went into the bedroom to pack up an overnight bag, and I got paged again, 8888. And I had talked to her later on. I said, can they do anything with your pager? And she said, yeah, they can use the phone. It's easy for them to use the 5 and the 8 button. So I'm like,
well, Mark, as somebody who is very level-headed, because you still are, and never believed in this kind of stuff, how do you feel now?
Oh, I figure there's answers to it all, and I don't know them all. And you know what? I've been alive on this earth 26.5 years. I've had to deal with it once. Honestly, I don't care enough to try to find out all the answers. I got out of the house. Let me get back to doing my job of watching baseball, and I'll be a happy guy.
All right. Brother, thank you very much for being here. Thank WTAM for allowing you to be here and telling your story. Good night, my friend.
Night, Art.
Good night. There you have it, folks. A non-believer. Well, he was. We'll be back.
All right. That certainly is appropriate for tonight, isn't it? Let me first tell you that on my website, we have about 3 pages of brand new ghost photographs for tonight's program. You just heard the reporter in the last half hour from WTAM in Cleveland, who was a complete non-believer in this sort of thing, and it got to the point where the house he was provided down in Florida no longer was livable. Obviously, it was haunted. And non-believer that he is, he finally had had enough, and he left, and he will not go back to that house, and I don't blame him. When we do Ghost to Ghost, we do serious and real ghost stories. That's why it's frightening. These aren't made up. It's not baloney. It's real. So I warn you, if you frighten easily, turn the radio off. A lot of what you're going to hear tonight is going to be frightening. Most of what you're going to hear tonight comes from all of you. Your real stories. That's exactly what makes them so frightening. I don't laugh at people who have these experiences. I don't laugh at all. Mark Schwab, I'm sure, got chuckled at by his friends at WTAM. But I can assure you, if it happens to you, the smile gets wiped off your face very quickly indeed. Are ghosts captured on film? Yes, they are. On digital cameras? Yes, they are. And if you'll go to my website right now, you see, and you go to program and tonight's guest info, you will see Ghost to Ghost AM with Art Bell, and then below it, you'll see recent ghost photos, 3 pages. Take a look at some of those. There's a fire photograph in there that is evil from start to finish. There's a photograph that'll just scare the you-know-what out of you. It's obviously not just the random flicker of a flame caught on film, but something truly evil caught on film. And that's one of many up there, but it's completely freaky. That's all I can tell you. Completely freaky. All right. Now, I've got somebody on the phone that sent me a fax earlier today that freaked me out because it has to do with a man that I worked with. And some of you may recall that I did a guest appearance on Dark Skies, NBC's Dark Skies. Remember that? And I played one of the Majestic 12 board members, and the actor that I was with, who was the star of the show, was J.T. Walsh, who passed away, I think now about 3 years ago. J.T. was a great guy, a great actor, and a man who helped me. I hate TV. Man, I hate television. I ward off TV like some people ward off evil. I just don't like it. I turn it down right and left. But working with J.T. was really fun because he was so relaxed and so natural and so intense with regard to what he was doing. And he just relaxed me, and we had a blast doing Dark Skies, an absolute blast. Now, why have I said all of this? Well, there's a reason. It's the man who sent me the fax. His name is Todd. Todd, welcome to the program.
Hi, Art.
Hi there. I know that you're coming on here tentatively and that you weren't even sure you wanted to do this, right?
Yeah, that's true, Art. The only reason I'm coming on tentatively, I guess, is because I guess I'm not worried about myself. I just wanted to thank and respect the family of JT, and his son is a good friend of mine, and yeah, so it's an intimate thing. So I was a little bit tentative, but I thought, JT was a big fan of yours and of your show and of this type of subject.
Apparently so. Now, I didn't really know that. I mean, I knew the show that JT was doing, but you put some details in the facts that surprised me. I had no idea JT was apparently into the unusual, but he wasn't he? Now, you were in JT's house. Why were you in his house?
Well, his son, as I mentioned, is a good friend of mine. And about 2 years after JT passed, myself and 2 other friends moved into the house with his son.
I met his son or I should say his son met me at the airport, believe it or not.
Right.
JT sent his son down to the airport when I came to do that episode of Dark Skies, so I met his son. Very nice fella.
Yeah, he actually had mentioned that to me once before.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so you moved into the house with his son and then one other?
Actually, two other people.
Two others, all right.
And we all from time to time had a number of experiences, but I think that I probably, for some reason, had the most, or kind of absorbed the brunt of the experiences. As a matter of fact, as that last guest that you just had on there, I just wanted to say that those types of stories in the house were a common type occurrence.
What kind of, like what?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I always got the sense that this spirit in the house was not a mean spirit. As a matter of fact, it was quite friendly, and just the sense that I got, and I got the sense that this spirit actually kind of liked us being there and living in the house. But, well, here's one.
Okay, well, just before you go on, you wrote, I also want to point out the study, which I guess you're going to talk about, was filled with books paralleling the topics of your show, including books on ghosts and communicating from the other side. This is in J.T. Walsh's house, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So some I still have in my possession to this day. You say including a copy of the script from the episode that I was in with him?
Dark Skies, yeah.
You're kidding.
No. As a matter of fact, Art, I learned of JT's death from your show. I was driving in my car late that night, and I was friends with John, although I didn't know JT in life. I was friends with John. I was riding home late at night listening to your show, and I learned of JT's death from your program, from your voice.
So JT obviously was considering all of this, whether there was life after death, and if there was, could one communicate from the other side? He was obviously considering all this.
Most definitely. In my opinion.
So then, at one point in here, you say you were finally living in a full-blown haunted house.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay, when you say full-blown haunted house, what do you mean?
Well, just like that gentleman was talking about earlier, I'm talking about, common thing was hearing footsteps a lot, flickering of lights on and off, doors that would lock. We never, like, for example, the front door would lock a lot, but none of us, we were all bachelors, it was just kind of foolish, but none of us had a key to the front door, and you could only lock it from the inside. And there was a lot of times that I stayed alone in the house, and I would leave to go do this or do that, and I couldn't have possibly locked the front door myself, because then I wouldn't have been able to leave the house, because I could only lock it from the inside without a key. I would come home a lot and the front door would be locked, and I would be the only person that would be there. Every now and then you would hear like a distant kind of a whispering voice over your shoulder, and you kind of look to see, and
really?
A lot of times you really got an intense feeling of being watched, and particularly in different parts of the house. As a matter of fact, later on, as the experience began to escalate, we went through two different sets of cleaning ladies because they refused to clean in the house anymore because of the experiences that they were having.
You're kidding.
No.
Obviously you're not.
No, I'm not.
Is it your view that it was JT? Do you have any...
You know what? I'm not a medium, and I'm not the expert at all, like the woman, who was on the previous interview. But if it wasn't him, I got the sense that it was. If it wasn't him, then it could have been another spirit that was maybe posing as him. His ashes were in the house. There were a lot of different things that pointed in that direction. I would work in his study a lot, and different times and I'm an aspiring filmmaker myself, and I'd be breaking down the script and coming up with creative choices. And in a weird, backhanded kind of a way, I would get this sense of inspiration, so to speak, that when I would reach a sticking point, and as these different things began to escalate. Oh, and by the way, there was a front gate, electric gate, that would open and close on its own when you had to know which telephone line and what the code was for that. I mean, these things went on and on and on all the time. There were times when my girlfriend and I, who I was dating at the time, it became so obvious that we would literally leave the house for the night. It was a classic haunting.
What do you mean by a normal glass of wine would turn into a bottle or even two? What do you mean?
Oh, that was where I was kind of leading. Eventually, my personality when I was in the house kind of began to change.
Oh?
This is kind of more difficult to talk about than I thought. I would start picking up books that I wouldn't normally pick up, watching movies I wouldn't normally watch. I started drinking a lot more in the house than I normally would, and I know JT in his past had that habit, and just lots of different things. It was almost as if I was kind of taking on his personality, and I don't know if this means anything. I'm not an expert by any means, but it was almost like there was residual life or energy from him, some kind of in the furniture and the walls and the artwork and the books and the everything that almost kind of rubbed off on you. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Sure does.
That was kind of how it felt. And one night in particular,
I wonder if you're kind of an empath of some sort. That would be somebody who is able to feel what others are feeling. That imprint is on them, and they essentially start to become that and start to feel the pain, if not more, from that person or entity in this case.
I think that that's probably true. At any rate, my personality when I was in the house was kind of starting to change, and this night in particular was getting close toward the sale of the house, and which was kind of another factor. Things really kind of started to escalate, particularly with my kind of empathic experience, as you put it. And I just was going to start off by having a glass of wine, and a glass of wine led to, those big, huge bottles of wine that are almost as big as 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I ended up drinking that whole thing by myself in the hot tub that night and breaking glass all over the house.
Now, there are people who are going to say doing that could cause delusions.
Well, that's probably true. And I would admit that, But it may be just coincidence. It may have just been an unconscious thing. But the next morning, the realtor was coming to show the house, which was obviously wasn't a very good thing. But I always kind of got the sense that whatever the spirit was didn't want us to leave and didn't want any new people to come in.
Now, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
It did kind of at the time, yeah.
Since his son was there.
That's correct.
That would make all the sense in the world. And by the way, what did his son say about? Did you talk with him about this?
We did, and there were, the other guys in the house were having pretty intense experiences as well. He had mentioned that there were other friends and family, close friends and family that he had that had noticed other things, and he didn't deny the fact, but he didn't quite have the intense experiences, I don't think, that we had. So I don't know if in a weird kind of a way it kind of comforted him, or I can't really speak for him, but he was aware of it, but I just don't think to the extent that we were.
Well, J.T. Walsh was a very, very strong personality. Mm-hmm. So it would not surprise me that in death, if it were possible, and if we don't know half of what we know about the other side, and
right.
And it goes. I'm still learning, as everybody else is, but such a strong, dominant personality might indeed make an imprint of the sort that you described on somebody living in that house, particularly shortly after death. I really can see that happening.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Although, I will say for a large part of this, even though you kind of became aware, of this was happening, you still are kind of in a sense of denial when things happen to you right in front of your face. When the door locks right in front of your face or whatever it might be, you still are in a sense of denial about it. You don't live every moment while you're in a house like this where you're constantly thinking about it.
Sure.
Which kind of leads to my last story. This gets a little bit crazier.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that would happen to me a lot, almost nightly, is my bed would shake. And there would be the fresh smell of smoke coming from the next room, which was the smoking room. And JT was a smoker and, things like that, which I don't know if that's the case or not. But
your bed would shake?
My bed would shake almost nightly.
And how hard? I mean, I remember
until I woke up.
You remember The Exorcist?
Yeah, but it was never anything like that.
But enough to wake you up.
And usually it would until I woke up. And after a while, it would actually continue to shake after I was awake. And then after a while, again, it would just start shaking even before I fell asleep. And sometimes I couldn't tell if it was the bed that was shaking or if I knew it was shaking when I woke up and my heart was pounding so hard that it was my heart that was causing it. And yet sometimes I would feel like things in the mattress and like fingers and things like that. But and I actually checked the mattress to see if there was mice in it, and with my roommates and all kinds of stuff, and there was nothing. They happen almost every night. But this one night in particular, I had fallen into a very deep sleep, and I hadn't slept very deeply lately because of the shaking bed stuff. And I had reached this very deep place in sleep, with that point where you kind of start to reach almost a sleep paralysis.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
Well, it was almost as if, and I don't know this for certain, but this is the impression that I got, that whatever this being or entity was waiting for me to reach that place. And the moment that I did, I could almost see that it was almost as if it was a shadow-type being, grabbed my right arm from the right side of my bed and started to pull me out of my body.
Pull you out of your body?
Pull me out of my own body, yes, that's correct. And it actually became a struggle for quite a while. It seemed like a long time, but I'm sure it was only just a few seconds. And I got the sense that this being was almost trying to get inside of me. I don't know if that's what it was, if it was just my imagination. I know it wasn't a dream. I know that for sure. And because as soon as I snapped back and kind of got right back into myself, I was awake right away. And that was by far even though things that happened physically in the house and things like that, that was by far the most dramatic experience.
All right. Well, you and I guess then have no way to know that it was J.T. Walsh, but it was his house shortly after he passed away. So that's some story, my friend. I really appreciate your telling us. I assume that house has now been sold.
Yes, it has.
And so you're not experiencing it anymore. What we can hope is that JT is at peace. I'm sure he is. He certainly deserves it.
I think so.
Thank you, my friend.
Have a good night.
Good night. I don't know. You decide. I'm Art Bell. This is Coast to Coast AM. Here on out tonight, the only thing we're doing is taking your ghost stories. And by that, I mean the real ones, the serious ones, not the little insignificant ones, but the serious ones. It's called Ghost to Ghost, and it's coming right up. It's nighttime. It's the time you do this sort of thing. This is Ghost to Ghost, and I turn the rest of the night over to all of you. Let us begin. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello?
Hello.
Art.
Yes.
How's it going?
Fine. Where are you?
I'm in Ellensburg.
Ellensburg, Washington.
Washington, where I felt the quake.
I was going to be the next question. Yeah, you did feel it. All right.
Well, I have several stories of the same type. I'll tell you one.
Just give me your best shot.
The most recent, I was asleep in my girlfriend's place, and I had had a bad cough, and so during the night while I was coughing, I popped a lozenge in my mouth, and I felt 4 taps on my shoulder. I was asleep with the cough drop in my mouth.
You're not supposed to do that anyway.
Right.
With a cough drop in your mouth.
All right. Well, it was the only way I could sleep.
Right.
And they were such heavy taps that I woke my girlfriend and asked her, did you have to hit me like that?
Yep.
And it just made sense that I thought it was her telling me I had a cough drop in my mouth. But it was such a serious physical touch that there could be no way that it was anything else than her.
Only it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was something other than her.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So?
I thought so. And those are my other stories.
So what do you think had hold of you?
I don't know. I don't know if it was ethereal or just paranormal or I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe it's something that wanted you to go somewhere.
Or not go somewhere.
Or not go somewhere.
By, not choking or whatever, because it was in the very back of my throat when I woke up.
The lozenge?
Yes.
Well, there are some who would say it was a sleep thing, that nobody was tapping on you.
But
there's others who would say that it was maybe your guardian angel trying to save your life because you were about to choke to death on a throat lozenge.
Well, right. I know it seems silly, but I wouldn't have called in if I didn't think it was...
No, not silly. Not silly, sir. I appreciate your call. Thank you. Maybe, look, who's to say what the nature of the other side is. Who's to say that besides scaring the you-know-what out of you and being evil, and there certainly are evil entities, and by the way, again, go to my website. You want to see an evil entity, I'll show you one. We've got 3 pages of recent ghost photos, and there's one in there of a fire, and if that's not the most evil entity I've ever seen, anyway, you judge for yourself at www.artbell.com. We've been saving the ghost photographs, the new ones, and we've got, I think, one of the best collections of ghosts on the web. But these recent ones we've been saving for you. Keith has been sort of compiling them. And by the way, if you have a really good ghost photograph, you can send it to webmaster@artbell.com. That's webmaster@artbell.com. Even tonight, we'll get it on if it's a really, really good one. So if you want to send one in, you're able to. Those who have done so in the last month or so are up there now, and a couple of them are really, really evil. Good morning on the wildcard line. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Art Bell, sir.
Yes.
My name is Josh. I'm in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, Seattle.
And the
Ground
first question I
zero.
want to ask is, did I feel the earthquake?
Yep, you
And
did,
yeah, I did,
obviously.
definitely.
Where were you?
I was actually walking. I live up on the hill near White Center.
Right.
I was walking down the hill towards my bus stop, and I can see all of Seattle from there. And it was like kind of waving one way, and I was waving the other way. It was very like disorientating.
Yes.
But yeah, so it was pretty weird. Yeah, I actually do have a lot of better ghost stories than this one, but I want to tell this one because I actually caught a voice on tape.
Oh.
And I'd like to try to play that for you if I can.
Oh.
Yeah. This was over a year ago on the Halloween before last.
Yes.
It wasn't on that Halloween, but it was near it. I was working at a Halloween store, and I had a friend, a couple friends actually. They were telling me about weird stuff they saw around their apartment in Seattle, near SeaTac area.
Right.
And so I had heard on your show, actually, from the GIS.
Yes,
the
Ghost Investigators Society, yes.
About taking a tape recorder and trying that.
Yeah, and you did?
Yeah, I actually thought, maybe I'll try that. So I went and bought a brand new tape recorder from Radio Shack.
Right.
I have exactly the one I'm holding right now. And we went there, and the first question we asked was the one that I guess they suggested you should ask first, is anybody here kind of question.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I'm a little shaky right now.
No, that's all right. Just relax.
It's actually a pretty weird thing you're going to hear. If you can actually hear it, I'll try.
All right, now before you play it, tell me what it's going to say.
I have no idea. It does not sound like English. It sounds like Arabian or something.
All right, now this is let's qualify, a brand new tape recorder, and I hope a brand new tape.
Yes, a very brand new tape, bought at Radio Shack as well.
Okay, all right, good enough. And so you asked if anybody was there, and what we're about to hear is what came back to you.
Yeah, I got to let you know that at first, when we first played it back, it just sounded kind of like a background whispering.
Yes.
But I also knew some people who had equipment to amplify it and take out the noise.
Yeah, of course.
Noise.
Yep.
Right, and so it sounds kind of wavy.
All right, that's right. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Okay, but it's going to play it twice now, and this is exactly what we heard to the first question, and we got no responses to any other questions after this.
All right.
Okay, here it goes. Anybody in here? Anybody in here?
Oh, man.
Okay, now did you hear that?
Oh, yes, I heard that too
isn't that
clearly.
amazing?
Yes, that's amazing. Oh, my God.
I'm not going to say for sure that this is totally genuine. It did go out of my hands for a couple minutes, but as far as I can tell, this is totally genuine.
So, yes, but before you had it analyzed for noise or to try to filter out the noise, which is a common thing to do in audio, you obviously heard something on the tape or you would not have given it to somebody to analyze.
Yeah, it just sounded kind of a whisper, kind of like kind of thing.
I've got you.
But it didn't answer anything like that after any of our other questions, like what is your name or anything like that. And I actually ended up living at this place a little while later because I needed some roommates. And I did actually witness some dishes flying off of a kitchen counter when we were talking something about tarot cards, and I said something about they're not evil, and then these dishes went flying off the counter.
Do me a favor. Next time you're in the house, instead of asking, is there anybody here, try this question. Want to take a ride?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I just might.
Yeah, and good luck to you, and thank you very much for the story and the tape, too. Oh, my goodness. Now, the young man had a tape recorder and a blank tape and caught that. Now, you tell me, what was that? What did we hear? I think we heard something from the other side. I think we heard something from an entity. Could we understand it? No. But the way it sounded, I'm not sure we would want to understand it. And I was kind of joking about asking anything further, because if I got that kind of answer, I know the GIS folks do this kind of thing every day. But there's no way in the world that I would have proceeded past getting that answer. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Mark,
Yes.
how you doing? Bob from Philadelphia?
Yes. Hi, Bob.
Okay, this is not a real long story, but it's a little complicated. My father was a dentist. He purchased a house to put his practice in back in the early 1940s. I was born in 41. As a child, I went to the house while it was being renovated.
Yes, sir.
And on the second floor, it's a 3-story building. On the second floor, I felt really freezing cold, unusually cold considering the rest of the building wasn't chilly in any way. And I felt that I was being watched. Well, my father said, no, you're just, being silly, so forth and so on. I didn't start to actually live in the building until the 1960s. And I was brought up to be one of these people who, did not, in fact, believe in any such thing as paranormal, ghosts, any of that kind of thing.
I understand, yes.
And the deal was that I purchased the house in 1970. I got married, and my wife and I lived in this house.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my wife had said to me, you're talking to yourself. Why are you talking to yourself? And I said, that's not me. She said, well, why, isn't it you? Who's doing the talking if it's not you? There's only 2 of us here.
Right.
And I said, turn on the water. I happened to be in the bathroom at the time, which is a pretty good-sized room. I said, turn on the water in the sink. And she turned it on. I said, can you hear these voices better? Yeah. I said, turn on the tub. And then there was an electric space heater in there. Well, anyway, we turned everything on. And the louder the background noise became, the louder the voices became, until she was able to recognize that it was a man and a woman arguing. So, at any rate, we had problems with items that were missing or moved, like photos, magazines, tools. And I decided, since I was a commercial photographer, that what I would do is that I would try and see if there was any way to take a picture of whatever this was.
Oh.
I had purchased, you know what Heath kit is, right, or was?
I built more Heath kits than I can tell you.
Yes, well, I have a closet full of those myself.
That was an electronics manufacturer, folks, of old ham gear, and in fact, they did audio, even television, in Benton Harbor, Michigan, I believe, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. I built a little GR104, portable TV, and I built radios. And anyway, one of the things that I had done is I had purchased a bunch of kits that all had to do with security. There was, ultrasonic detectors, with transducers. There were all kinds. There was a base unit, a phone dialer, a whole bunch of this stuff.
Sure.
And when we turned it on for the first time, of course, basically my wife thought that it was, something I had done that was wrong, but it wouldn't be on very long, especially at night, until, of course, the alarm went off. And it came down to the point where we shut the units off until we found out which one of the ones was going off the most. And I, of course, replaced it. And we had the same problem. And I did it 2 or 3 times. So I said, I'll bet you that whatever it is that's been, causing these noises and problems, again, second floor, 3-floor building, it was right there on the second floor. The one that faced the length way down the hall was the one that kept going off. So I said, if we can detect it, we can photograph it, because we'll be able to use something like aeroectochrome or whatever, and, strobe lights, Oh,
no, that makes all the sense in the world. You've got a way of identifying roughly where it is, so...
Oh, the exact distance.
You can set up and catch it. Yeah, I've got you.
And, at one point, I had even bought a kit from Polaroid, the Polaroid ultrasonics.
Oh, yes.
For distance measurement.
Yes.
And, at any rate, I wanted to set up a test. I wanted to see, if, what time of day was best. And, so I set this unit up and I took it down. It was above the door, mounted to the door frame. I took it down and I put it on top of one of the drawing table benches that I had.
Right.
It's just about 3 foot tall.
Right.
Just to make sure, I put some plywood through the rungs, and I put some encyclopedia on top of that. and I put the wire down through the door into the rear room. The hall runs east and west. There was a rear steps coming off just behind where this was. It went north-south, and the front stairway, again, ran east and west and met the hall in the middle.
So
anyway,
you were setting up an entity photographic trap.
yes, exactly what I was doing.
All right, and?
I didn't know whether I'd have to back like this, front like this, but I just wanted to know. So anyway, I waited till my wife had gone out. We had a couple of cats. I put them in the bedroom on the 3rd floor and locked them in. Well, they were 5 minutes and they were sound asleep. I turned the central processor on, which would detect a signal from the ultrasonic on the 2nd floor, and I decided I better not move around the house, so I stayed in the 3rd floor kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't more than 5 minutes, then the alarm went off. Well, it was awfully loud, and so I thought, well, I better, the cats are going to, die of this noise. I walked into the bedroom. I turned the central processor off, so the alarm stopped, and then that's when I heard the crash. There was crashing and banging, scared the life out of me. I thought maybe, it wasn't picking up, in fact, an entity. It was picking up a burglar. Mm-hmm. And so I went downstairs, armed to the teeth, with the kitchen knife is all I had. And there's all my gear down the bottom of the steps.
All your gear?
Yes, everything. The ultrasonics at the bottom, the stools at the bottom, and the wire, interestingly enough, this had a very short AC cord. It actually put the signals back through the AC lines in the house so that it didn't require any additional, wiring of the building.
Right.
The deal was that all of this was down the bottom of the rear steps. There were dents in the side of the walls on the steps and the ceiling above the steps where it had bounced and bounced and bounced on the way down.
It's like somebody threw it down.
That's exactly what had happened. That was when I decided that probably I shouldn't risk a Nikon or a Hasselblad.
I guess not.
Yeah. Actually, what it was more my wife's decision not to do.
Did you get any photographs?
No, I had. I was sort of thwarted in that regard by Linda saying, I don't think you should risk the photographic equipment, because if they could do that, they could do anything else, because this was a physical.
I know you said that going back to the water and the fact that you could hear some people arguing.
They were arguing over a child who apparently was sick.
All right, so you had a battling couple, apparently, a man and a woman?
Yes, it was a man and a woman, and we also had something else which apparently the cats could see, but we could not. Sometime later, just before we decided to make an end of this.
Do you know the history of the house?
The house was built in the early 1900s, around 1910 or 1911. And before my father purchased it, no, I had not checked that out. I still have not checked that out to see who owned it. But it could have been something to do with the influenza epidemic in the 20s. A child maybe died of it. And it all had to do with the 2nd floor middle room and the hall adjacent to that. Oh. And the cats that we had, and I remember you saying not too long ago that you had experience with cats seeing things that you didn't see.
No, quite all the time, sure.
And when I had come back again once from doing something where I didn't want the cats to be involved, if I was painting anything, I used to put them in the bedroom. I heard one of them talking, and I thought, oh, well, they're awake, I'll let them out. And when I went in, one was sitting on a chair, one was on the floor, the other was on the bed, and they were looking. This room basically has a bay window that faces west, and faces our yard, actually, on the 3rd floor, and they were all talking. I tried talking to them. They didn't pay any attention. So I turned one around physically. Now, of course, they never bit us and they never scratched us. So they just simply, tried to regain their original position with respect to that corner of the room.
Right.
They were looking just below the ceiling, which is very high, probably about 8 feet off the floor is where they were looking. And I couldn't see anything. So I went over and I opened up on the 3 windows, this be the window left. I opened the shades on the window right. I opened the curtains, and out of the corner of my eye, not my central vision,
yes,
but my peripheral vision, I could see a darkness. And it looked sort of like what you would expect a gingerbread man to look like. That is to say, no definite limbs, but yes, there were what looked like legs, arms, and a head and a torso, but no real definition. No, you could not see, a fingernail. You could not see.
Oh, brother.
And here's this thing, and I cannot hear it. I cannot see it.
All right, listen, we're way out of time here.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I appreciate the story, and I hope all is well with you now. That's some tale.
Yes, we had that taken care of. We basically prayed it out of here.
All right, thank you, my friend.
You have a nice night.
You too. Great. I'm Art Bell. There are those who say the veil between that side and this side is breaking down. I would tend to agree with those people. As you listen to the stories tonight, the contemporary stories, the ones that have literally happened in the last few days, in the last year or so, the frequency of these stories, the intensity of these stories, to me, kind of says something is changing. Has that occurred to any of you out there? Something is changing. Maybe the veil between here and there is beginning to slip away or change. I really don't know. I just listen. Remember, I'm doing this show tonight with a temperature of 100.5, so the flu is still with me, and it may have my thinking off kilter a little bit, and I may say things I ought not say, but is it not said that in the last days, the final days, the dead will rise? Is it not possible that in the days leading up to the end, the veil, and I call it that just because that's all I can think to call it, will begin to collapse? And I'm not suggesting these are the final days, but I guess I am suggesting there's a lot going on right now with regard to entities, ghosts, whatever you want to call them. An awful lot beginning to happen. You've got to wonder if it might not be the warm-up. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Oh, hi, I'm sorry. This is Melissa from Van Nuys, California.
Hello, Melissa.
I have a little ghost story, I guess, to tell you. I went to a friend of a friend's home in December for a little arts and crafts meeting with about 5 women.
Right.
I've never been in the house. I pull up, and it's a beautiful, very large house built in the early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I walk in, and it's kind of got an interesting feeling about it, just as old houses do, but I don't think anything about that. All of the other women go to the library to sit, and I go to the kitchen to get a drink. And the kitchen is in 3 parts, kind of a U shape. You have to go through the pantry, the kitchen, and to another third room to the refrigerator.
Gotcha.
I get a drink, and as I'm walking back, I walk through a game room that has basically the only thing in it is a pool table. And as I'm walking past the pool table, a multicolored ball rolls past my feet really quickly. And it's like a baseball-sized rubber ball, like a kid's ball. And
right.
when I had walked in the door, I'd noticed that the family had 2 cats. And I, of course, think it's one of the cats batting the ball at me.
Sure.
So I looked to the corner to see which little kitty had batted the ball, and the cats aren't there. And immediately what flashes through my mind is, okay, the ball went really fast. The floor's not uneven. Something else did it, and I don't know what.
Right.
So I look to the library, which is about 500 feet away, and there are glass French doors where all the other women are. So to see if there's something going on, and the 2 cats are in there. So the cats could not have batted the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it was really fast, and it rolled right past my feet and then stopped. I kind of get the hair on my arm stands up. I walk to this stranger's library and say, "Excuse me," to the lady who owns the house. "You don't have ghosts, do you? Ha, ha, ha." And she said, the smile falls from her face, and she said, "What did they do now?" And I'm like, oh, this has happened before. And she said, "What did they do?" And I said, "Well, a large ball rolled in front of my feet really quickly and stopped." And she said, "Yeah, well, they're kind of pranksters." And then she goes on to explain that her daughter, they had only lived in the house a few years. Her daughter had had some sort of a incident in the basement where the ghost had tripped her, and she'd sprained her ankle, and she'd finally gone into the history of the house because she didn't know what was going on, and it turns out they're the third family to own the house. The house was built in 1927. The original owners of the house had a very hard life, very hard time, lost a daughter to a very difficult circumstance, and the woman, who they feel is the person occupying the house still, was very sad, and so she started to tell me a bit about her, and she said her name was Mary Wells Brown, and she said, "Oh, I have a picture of her." And I said, "Oh, I'd love to see it," which I think is probably going to be a small snapshot. She said, "I found a picture of her in the attic, and I've decided to honor her. I had this picture of her so she doesn't feel like I'm occupying her house and not honoring her." And I said, "I'd love to see it." She touches a panel on the parquet wall, and the wall moves.
Really?
Yeah, revealing a hidden back room that is basically a shrine to this woman. There's a sepia-toned picture on the wall that's probably 2 by 3 feet with a carved wood frame hanging really far up above a fireplace. And I try to walk in the room, and I can't.
What do you mean you can't?
It's very cold to begin with. Which it was December, so it could have been, except that this is California. But anyway, the room was amazingly cold. I put 1 foot in to get closer to the picture of the woman, and I feel like I'm trapped in molasses.
Good Lord.
And I'm like, I can't move. And the woman goes, "You know what? That happens. I understand." So I literally back out of the room. I can't even, I'm not even in control of myself enough to turn around and move. I can only back my foot out of the room to get back into the library again because I can't go in that room. I've never had an experience like that. I couldn't explain it.
Before this occurred to you, had you ever had an experience like this?
Never.
Had you been a believer in ghosts or spirits or life after death, or, are you religious? What's your background?
Well, I am religious. I have a spirituality, yes. I was raised Southern Baptist. I'm from Kentucky. Originally, I've lived in Los Angeles for 8 years. But I wanted to believe, sure. I mean, my mother passed away 9 years ago, and I'm an only child. And before she died, I was like, all right, look, you really have to come back. Death is not going to separate us. And I have not heard from her, so I'm a little pissed. But I'd wanted to believe, definitely. I've never had an experience like that in my life. Never.
And you're sure of what happened to you?
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, the woman in this house had encountered this whatever ghost so many times, she decided to build this shrine? Well,
when I say shrine, I suppose I'm being overly dramatic.
Well, no, if you push a button and the wall changes and a picture comes out, that's a kind of a shrine. She had to go to a lot of trouble to do that.
No, I think the wall, that sort of secret room was always there. I think she made that Mary Wells Brown's secret room. I mean, she hung the picture there, as it's like, all right, I'm giving her her own space so that she doesn't get honked off that we're here.
Well, that's going a pretty long way, isn't it?
Well, maybe.
Oh, my. All right, I really thank you for the story.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you take care. To the point that she physically could not enter the room. It would be sure fun to get the story from the lady who showed her the secret passageway, the secret room with the portrait of the woman. First-time caller line, you're on the air on Ghost to Ghost AM. Good morning.
Good morning, Art.
Hi there.
How you doing? I'm calling from Akron, Ohio.
Akron, yes, sir.
I got a story about I went to school in a small town in Xenia, Ohio, and in 1974 they had a tornado there. Mm-hmm. And then on this campus of the school, they have what they call an armory. I'm sure you know what an armory is. You were in the military, am I correct?
Yes, of course I know.
At night, the kids at the school would say that this armory was haunted, and I never believed it. And they used to roller skate inside this armory all the time in the early 50s and 60s, and I went there from between 84 and 87. And one night I was walking up to, we have our hospital on campus, and going past this armory, you could hear roller skating in this armory at night.
Roller skating in an armory.
And to find out, back in 1974, they put all the people that from the town of Xenia when they had a tornado, and they had an F5 tornado.
Oh my God! And they put them in the armory.
Right, and none of the kids would go near this armory at night because it was spooked. They said it was haunted. And I've heard it from different people from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. Well,
was the armory hit by the tornado?
No. They just think this armory's haunted. People.
Yes, but obviously it was haunted by the children. The only time there would have been children there was, as you suggested, when they were there as a shelter.
Right.
So that brings up the specter of hauntings by the living, or the fact that some living person was there. This might not be a person who's yet passed away, and yet the echo of those people remains. It's kind of weird.
And you could plainly hear, it sounds just like someone roller skating.
No, I've got you. No, I understand. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the other thing that I think I wanted to really bring up tonight, and that is, lately we've been hearing stories, apparent hauntings, from people who are still alive. Now, what does that say? Does that say that our spirits are one in life and in death, and that we're capable of having that spirit remain in a certain place, doing a certain thing, even though we still live as when we die? I don't know. It's fascinating. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi. Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes?
Yes, how you doing tonight?
I'm fine. Where are you?
Yeah, this is Dean in Tampa, Florida.
Hi, Dean.
Yeah, the last time we spoke, actually, for Ghost to Ghost, I had mentioned a story about a young lady named Clarity.
Oh, I remember the Clarity story, yes.
Yes, sir. I don't know if you want me to update the newer listeners, or it was quite a story, but I actually had an experience last year after telling that story that kind of connects the two.
All right. I don't know whether you ought to, if there's a way you can rush through the Clarity story.
Oh, trust me, I'll make it brief, sir.
All right, go.
Basically, about 14 years ago, moved down to Denton. I moved down to Grapevine, Texas. Went to a party with a friend of mine. Met a very nice young lady by the name of Clarity. I'd always taken the same route back home to Grapevine, but for some reason that night, when I took her home, who supposedly she lived pretty close to where I lived in Grapevine, I wound up getting lost and wound up driving actually north to Oklahoma. So on the way there, we took a right turn and wound up in Denton, Texas that night. And she suddenly told me that she used to live there, and she kind of directed me around inside Denton, Texas, and we wound up in an apartment building. And she said she had some friends there, so I thought we were going to get a telephone or something like that, try to find some directions home. Mm-hmm. Well, suddenly we get out of the car, and there's a big hill on the left-hand side there. And she goes, "Let's go over the hill. I want to show you something." And I said, "Okay." I'm kind of curious. It's about 3 a.m. in the morning. Really pretty girl, so I'm pretty much up for anything right now.
Yeah, you're thinking, I'm going to get lucky.
Exactly, sir.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it was tricks of lights and shadows, so I figured no problem. So we went over the hill, and suddenly I'm looking at a graveyard, and I've never been one to be doing the graveyard for fun type thing, but I'm kind of up for anything at this point.
Still, you're thinking she's really a fox. Let's see.
Exactly. Yeah. At this point, I'm pretty much signing my my truck over, so I'm like, no problem. So we're walking in, and there's a really huge stone gate, and on the right-hand side, it was it almost looked like it had been hit by a tornado or something like that, but it was just demolished. Well, I didn't really say much about it because she kind of wandered in, and we were looking around, and suddenly I'm standing there, and it's an extremely dead still Texas night, and there's a full moon out, and I love full moons, Art, and I'm looking up at the full moon, and she's standing behind me, and suddenly to the left of me, I see 7 white birds, and they're all connected by the wing, and they're just floating up towards the moon, and I'm like I'm watching this thinking, this is totally beautiful. I'm just, I'm in awe. And suddenly from behind me, she starts speaking about Bible prophecy and about the 7 birds that will return her home. And as I'm looking up at the moon and I'm looking at the birds and I'm listening to her, talk about the prophecy of the seven birds and the returning home. As the word home trails off, sir, I look around and suddenly she's gone. And at this
I was
point,
going to say probably at that point you were thinking, not so lucky.
no, definitely. Sobriety had now entered me 100%. I'm fully,
Now, she
I've
began,
got
let me
clarity.
get this moment again. She began talking as the seven birds were flying. It was beautiful, full moon. She started talking about Bible prophecy,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And the next second?
As the word home, as she's saying return home, trails off, I look around and I turn exactly to where she was standing. She is completely gone. I do a hard target search of the place because I'm still a gentleman. I'm not going to bail on her. But yet I'm looking hard, I'm looking low, and I'm thinking, well, maybe she just went, returned home, or maybe went to a friend's house. Well, as I find out later, she truly did return home. Because about 2 years later, I come back to the same place in Denton, Texas, and I go up to a Texaco just right down the corner. And I'm talking to the guy at the counter, and I'm saying, boy, I had kind of a strange experience back then. And he goes to relate the story about this girl who, I guess a couple of her friends got into their dad's pickup truck, drove over the hill, wound up crashing into that very stone gate that I saw earlier before that was destroyed, and wound up getting killed on her prom night. And I'm thinking to myself, truly she had returned home. Well, here's the kicker, Art. I told you this story about a year ago at the same time.
That's right.
Well, there was a tremendous Texas storm at this time. I'm in Grapevine, Texas. I put the phone down. The moment, sir, I put the phone down, I look up. Across the street, I have a clear view of a transformer. A bolt of lightning hits the transformer, blows the transformer into it looked like the movie The Natural. Suddenly, boom, the lights go out. As I lay down the phone, I look across, and all you see is the moon. The moonlight goes inside the window. I look up, and I see 5 people standing inside my room. But yet, it looks like 3 women and 2 small children. And they're not there, but they're there. And it's like one of those adages. I've always felt that we're all surrounded by, several different people in some sense, either from our past or present.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when I put that phone down, the bolt of lightning, the moonlight, boom, I look up, and I wasn't shocked. It seemed like I almost accepted the fact that I'm an only child, but I never felt alone all my life.
Wow. Now that all this has happened, obviously you're a believer in what?
Well, all my life, sir, I believe we've all been connected by one way or another, and I think what it goes to show you is that we're just not here to be, put in a box and put away. I think we connect from our past and our present, and if we truly do connect, I think we'll definitely get more clarity for the future.
Clarity. I appreciate the call, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I agree with that man. Don't you? Are we all here just to trot around in this mindless maze that's life on Earth and then get put in a box or get reduced to ashes? And that's all there is? I don't think so. I think the stories that you're hearing prove it. Not singly, not any one of them, but the evidence is absolutely cumulative. We are not just biological entities. We are more than that. And that's what you're hearing. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art.
Good morning. Where are you?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa. Good.
Yeah.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here. Hope you and your wife feel better.
Thank you.
My job takes me around the country, all over the country. My wife and I have lived here in Tulsa for the last year.
Right.
My immediate family lives in Montana. My mom, my brother and sister, nieces and nephews. For 2 weeks in November, I was in Oklahoma City. It was the day after the election. I stayed up all night watching the election returns. So the next night I was tired, so I went go to bed early, about 8:30.
Sure.
About 4 hours later, I'm awakened by someone in my hotel room. The room is completely black. I know there's a female figure in the room next to my bed. It's walking or by my bed. I know the presence is there. As I'm trying to figure out why that person is in there, I was thinking maybe it was the maid or something. Maybe I had been dreaming or waking up early and the maid was in the room.
It wasn't Al Gore saying, Florida's mine, Florida's mine, right?
I don't think it was.
All right.
Didn't appear that way. But as I'm trying to, as I see this figure, I turn around and look, and this face appears toward me, comes toward me. It's a female face.
A face.
Comes toward me. Doesn't say anything, or at least I'm not hearing anything.
Yes.
And it comes toward me and then fades back.
Can you make out any detail?
Well, not at that time, but I relate the story to the guys I worked with the next day. And I'm saying, well, maybe it was my sister, or I thought, well, maybe the room's haunted or something, or maybe it was the maid or something, or I was dreaming or something.
Yes.
But anyway, that was Thursday. That was late. That was a late Wednesday night. The next day, I relate the story. Friday morning, I get a call from my wife saying, I have some bad news. That my niece has died. She committed suicide. Well, I find out, and I didn't connect it at the time, but I'm thinking, and I tell the guys this, well, maybe that was my niece that came to the room. So I go back to Montana for the funeral. I'm the one of the last persons to view my niece before the funeral, and it was that face that I saw. I didn't recognize it at first. I thought maybe it was my sister, but then as I see my niece at the viewing, it was her face, and that's what I saw. She had come to the room when I was in Oklahoma City.
Well, you had quite an encounter, didn't you?
It was, yes.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. As I said, all of this is cumulative. But if you listen through the night and you don't believe when it's over, then you just haven't been listening or thinking. I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Actually, this is Ghost to Ghost AM, and we may be talking about more than just ghosts tonight. We'll continue with your stories in a moment. It's going to be quite a night, I absolutely guarantee. It already has been. By the way, next hour, we're going to be concentrating on evil entities or ghosts, whatever it is you want to call them, the negative side. You know, the really scary stories, the ones with the glowing red eyes, the ones that are up to no good. I wonder how many of those are out there right now, and I wonder what that means.
A long time, and they wanted someone who would appreciate the home, and so my daughter got it, and they'd been in it about 5 months, and I went out to visit, and I hadn't been in the house 5 minutes. My daughter was helping me bring my suitcases up to the bedroom that they decided to put me in.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into the bedroom, and I got the hair standing up on the back of the neck, etc. And I turned to her and I said, I hate to tell you this, but there's somebody in this room. And she just went, oh, Mom. She said, she told her husband when they had moved in there, I got the story then.
Oh, no, you can feel it. I mean, you said the hair on the back of your neck stood up.
Yeah.
You absolutely can feel it. I've had that happen to me, and you're never wrong.
No, I know it.
If the hair on the back of your neck stands up,
yeah.
Something's happening big time.
There's somebody there.
Yep.
So anyway, so she tells me what's been happening the 5 months. They had not told anyone this, and since they had moved in, they especially in the evening after they'd put their young daughter to bed, they would hear somebody walking in the upstairs hall. And originally, of course, they would think that their daughter had gotten up and was walking around, and so they'd holler upstairs like good parents, and then somebody'd go up to put her back to bed, and
Sure.
she'd be sound asleep.
Sure.
And they would have doors opening, particularly in that upstairs hall, and things like that going on. And so they wondered, and she knew, because I sense these things, she knew that I'd know if there was somebody actually in the house. And so I stayed in that room. Of course, they put me in the room that they thought she belonged in.
You stayed there, huh?
I stayed in that room, and I was there for about 3 weeks, and it was okay. When I encounter something like this, I talk to them, and I didn't have any problems. Well, after about 3 weeks, my guy flew out and joined us, and the first night that he spent in the room, I woke up in the middle of the night, and she was right in his face. She was leaning over the bed and within inches of his face. Now, I normally do not see them. I usually just feel them.
Oh, my. Could you clearly see this?
No, not clearly. But it was like, when you just, it's like out of the corner of your eye. But, when you just wake up, sometimes you can see what you don't see when you're
That's right.
fully conscious.
Yes, of course, yes.
And I could see this.
Well, obviously, then, you had made your peace with this entity.
Or she wasn't that bothered. She wasn't bothered by me. She wasn't really bothered by them in the house. She just did her thing. She wandered around and opened doors and things like that. my granddaughter had been sleeping in that room just before I came. My daughter said, well, we're moving her out. You can stay in that room. Well, they were moving her out because she'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night
I've got
every
you,
night.
but go back to this moment. I mean, here's this entity leaning over, right?
Leaning over him, and I woke up, I sensed this, saw this, and got first very scared, and then, which I don't think of myself as a very possessive person, but I got angry. It was like, this is my guy. Get out of here. I got angry, and
That was almost jealousy.
yeah, and it was like, well, I didn't know what she would do. I knew, for some reason, I knew very quickly upon going to the house that it was a woman, and she liked doors open, she liked the room neat, stuff like that. I just had a sense about it. But I didn't realize she was not happy with him being there.
He's messy. Let's rip this messy guy's kidney out.
She didn't want him in the room. She didn't want him there. And I didn't know what she would do. So I got angry and essentially just said, back off. And so I just told her, I said, I calmed down. I started talking to her and said, look,
My guy.
Yeah, my guy. Leave him alone. We're only here for short visits. We'll be gone soon. If you back off and leave us alone, I will leave the door open. I will keep the room neat, etc. The little things that she liked. And if not, you will have me to deal with.
All right.
Not that I knew what I would do.
Yep.
But
tough lady.
But I was angry.
All right. Well, I appreciate the story.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, we found out later who it actually was a woman, the last of the family that owned the house, had died in the house.
I see. Well, listen, if something like this happened, I'd like to have somebody like you around. Get the hell out of here. Thank you very much. Bye. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning. Hello there.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air, sir.
Oh, this is Mark from Richmond, Virginia.
Hi, Mark.
Good morning. I hope I can be as eloquent as your other speakers. It's kind of weird. Synchronicity, I guess. I'm a little bit early here. A little bit 6 minutes early. You talking about red-eyed monster stories. You'd like to hear it?
Not monsters. I mean, you could think of them that way. What I said was, in the next hour, I wanted to get stories from people who saw what obviously is an evil entity. And to me, the scariest description of evil are these glowing red eyes that so many people have seen.
What happened to me, I was sleeping in the twin bed by myself, and I thought I was in a dream state, a lucid dream. I mean, because I could picture the bed and picture the wall, everything was as it was. And I noticed at the foot of the bed a figure, and the only way I could make out that it was a figure, the room was dark here. I mean, no night lights or anything, but, and I've heard you mention this before, but honest to goodness, this is truth. The only reason I could make it out because it was blacker than than the room itself.
I understand.
And it had, I really couldn't make out any features initially because it had like a loose fitting dark black shroud.
Oh, great.
Around it.
Yeah.
If you've seen commercials for like the Grim Reaper or whatever.
Yes.
Sort of like that. And I thought I was dreaming. I'm still not sure exactly what was going on. And so I said, well, I'll just have this dream and take it on by myself, and fight this entity.
Yes.
And kind of going one-on-one there for a minute. And all of a sudden, I had the sensation of being lifted off the bed.
Were you, in fact, lifted off the bed?
What happened, Art?
I'll tell you what, this is just a great cliffhanger. We're coming to a break, so I'm going to have you hold it right there, okay?
Sure.
All right. An entity darker than dark is in your room. You're levitated. You're off the bed. We'll get back to the story in a moment.
She doesn't remember me. Oh, what else? Anyway, but then I finally, I wasn't planning on interviewing someone that night. I finally said, "Are you the one that dropped the water on me?"
And?
The answer was yes. One of the things was that he said that he was trying to get to the other side and needed help. It came out that he and I had come from the East Coast in another life.
All right, so the tears then were a kind of a plea to help, plea for help to get to the other side, right?
To get me to go to that meeting.
To get you to go to the, right. But the ultimate plea, though, was to help that entity go through.
Right.
Okay, I think I've got it. Thank you. Tears from nowhere. That entity wanted help to get to the other side, which means that entities are trapped here. Obviously, then, for a period of time, ranging from, no doubt, almost a non-existent amount of time to forever. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, this is Elizabeth in Medford.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello, you'll have to pardon me, I'm starting to get the flu too, so if I sound funny, that's why. I have a story about I guess you'd have to say malevolent spirit that caused people to get physically and go emotionally ill.
You mean permanently, emotionally?
Well, until they left the house. But the people who were living in the house, we moved into it when I was about, I was about 8 or 9 years old in '81. And it was in Newcastle, Indiana, on what we figured out was Indian burial grounds. They had built attractive houses that were perfectly lined up, step down, step down, step down. And
right.
We didn't think anything of it at first, but my mom's boyfriend, over the course of living there, started to act really weird. Well, we didn't think much about it because, sometimes that happens. But our next door neighbor was what proved it out. It was a nice little young family, a husband and a wife, and a little boy. Well, as soon as they moved in next door, they started having weird things happening. Toilets flushing by themselves, cats tracking things across the room that nobody else could see, cold hands on people's shoulders, just weird stuff. But nothing you could put your finger on, really. And then their little boy got sick with something that couldn't get diagnosed. At first they thought he had anything from leukemia to cat scratch fever. It was something to do with his immune system, but he was getting sicker and sicker by the day.
Gotcha.
Didn't know what was wrong with him. And on top of that, their marriage was completely disintegrating. Well, you could chalk that up to just having a bad marriage. But they moved out. They said, their marriage broke up, they left. Well, that you could have just left that as a coincidence. Well, the next people that moved in, a wife, a husband, a little boy, same thing happened. As soon as they moved in, the little boy started to get ill. And the husband and the wife started fighting. Well, she was a bit more open-minded, and we had talked to her. My mom was open to ghost stories and things like that, and had told her about the previous couple. Well, she said, there's this room that every time I go into it, I want to just about kill my husband. If I go in there, I feel like if we're even sitting in there having a good time, I want to just beat him up.
Rage.
Yeah. And so she ended up being a good friend of my mom's, and she let my sisters use the house for their prom date after the prom, because the high school was right across the way. It was a 4-way stop.
Sure.
And they ended up in the TV room, which was the room where the arguments happened. Well, they had no knowledge about this because my mom didn't tell them. She didn't want to scare them. And their prom date went from being a happy, regular boy-girl thing.
The way it ought to be, yeah.
Yeah, to just complete hatred among all the couples. All the men and women ended up fighting. Didn't tell each other about it until later. This all came out later on, that this room was the focus of the rage. And the nearest that we could figure out was, because it was all focused on men, the women felt angry, but the men were the ones that seemed to suffer from it. I mean, they went from being normal, happy-go-lucky.
It happens that way so frequently.
Yeah, normal, happy-lucky guys, but then all of a sudden they just got dark.
Yes.
They got dark, and they got depressed, and they got sick. And the little boys, got sicker and sicker and sicker. Well, finally she's like, if this is the precedent set here, I'm leaving. I'm not sticking around for this. And she left the house. Well, her kid got better. By then the marriage was over, but, there was nothing that they could do about it by then. Well, every person that has moved into that house since then, she's kept up with it, has had the same problem. And the only thing that we could figure out is that something must have happened to a woman. Because I lived in the house, my mom lived in the house, my two sisters. We never had anything weird happen to us other than some odd ghostly things, but nothing dark and evil. But
something bad happened to some woman.
Something bad, and she was angry about it and taking it out on the men living there. And when I was a little kid, I wouldn't go to bed in my house by myself in that house. I had to have somebody come with me and stay with me till I was asleep. The day we moved out of that house, we moved into a Victorian across town, which in and of itself looked like a scary house. But I got up when it was time for me to go to bed, walked upstairs, went to bed. No questions asked. Just did it all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, my mom sat me down and she's like, well, honey, why did you do that? You usually have me come and stay up there. I said, we lived in a bad house, Mom. This is a good house. This doesn't have anything in it.
That is some story. That's really some story. I appreciate your call.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Can you imagine that? What is that? Is that an entity remaining, injecting its hatred into everybody who occupies the room? Or again, is it some sort of echo of hatred, memory of hatred, some kind of living memory, whether it's a living person who was there or somebody who's passed away? Is that hatred then infecting everybody who occupies the same space? So does that mean then that entities or just this raw hatred can occupy a place forevermore or until released? I don't know. There are so many questions generated by stories like this. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Is that me?
That's you.
Hi, my name's Barbara. I'm calling from the Enumclaw, Washington.
Welcome.
When I was 17, my mother died very unexpectedly. In fact, she was out of the country, and I received a phone call saying, well, she's dead. And I grieved painfully for her, and I grieved for not ever having the chance to say goodbye to her. And about 6 months after she died, I was physically becoming ill. I lost a tremendous amount of weight, took a lot of drugs, drank a lot, and was basically self-destructing. And I was over at a friend's house in the middle of the afternoon, sitting on their bed, and I looked up and I saw my mother walking towards me down a staircase. And she looked radiant. She actually looked younger and thinner and healthier than I could recall her ever looking. She looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And I jumped up to run and embrace her, and she said, I'm sorry, but this is taking so much of my energy to appear to you that you can't put your arms around me, but you can talk to me. So I was telling her how much I missed her, and she said she was aware of that and that I needed to stop grieving, and she was in a much better place. And then she asked me, would I like to come with her? And
to that place?
To the place where she was now,
all right,
in order to...
All right, we're at a break point here. I have to break, so hold it right there. It's a good place to hold it anyway, all right?
All right.
You went to this place?
I did.
Uh-huh. We'll pick it up right there when we get back. I'm Art Bell.
Very different, separate energies.
Maybe.
Maybe it was the same, and it was just playing tricks on me because,
That's what they do.
And I hadn't been drinking.
I'm with you. All right. All right, thank you very much. It seems to happen to those who drink and snort and smoke, as well as those who are stone cold sober. So make of that what you will. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Well, I have a very scary story that I've had a lot of not so scary ghost encounters since, but this particular one happened when I was probably about 16 or 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend who was really afraid of, I guess she'd seen The Exorcist or something, and she was horrified at the prospect of ever being possessed.
Of course.
And, you know, she was very rigidly Catholic, and I was not really all that paranoid about that. And I said, well, you know, I believe in God strongly enough that if Satan ever came after me, I'd know I'd win. And I went to bed that night.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to kind of meditate to go to sleep. And so I kind of, you know, meditated to go to sleep. I was very into stuff like that. And I remember just kind of getting down a nice, quiet, calm place. And I felt something cold above me. Icy.
Above you.
Above me.
You know, there are a lot of people, my dear, who say that meditation opens the door.
Well, I know that now. I didn't really know that then. I was only about 16 or 17. I'm in my late 30s now.
And for some reason, 16 or 17-year-old girls are particularly subject to this sort of thing. We don't know why. Anyway, something cold above you.
Something cold. And I think you have a lot of energy then.
Yeah.
You're very young and fresh. And I, you know, I looked up. I opened my eyes. Now, I know I wasn't asleep. You know, I've thought about this hundreds of times. I wasn't asleep. There on my ceiling, between myself and my ceiling, which was, you know, like a, you know, normal 8-foot-high ceiling.
Yes.
Over my bed was this green, glowing green thing. It looked like a big amoeba, but it was black in the center. And as it got from the center outwards, which was probably the width of my bed or thereabouts, it got tinged with yellow and then green. It was like a fluorescent amoeba around the edges.
Starting to sound like something from Ghostbusters.
Oh, no, the Ghostbusters was tame. I looked at this thing and it looked like it was pulsating. And in my head, I heard this voice. And it was so metallic. It was, we need you, we need you, we need you.
We need you.
It was so metallic that it sounded like a machine had generated, like, you know, you pick up the phone and it's the operator and it says to put in the number or whatever, and it's very generated.
Yes, oh yes, of course.
And I was so terrified. And so I said, oh God, and I tried to pray. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
I couldn't pray. And I felt myself get sucked out, like out of my head, out of my body. And I felt myself go into this black void. And I couldn't do anything. I thought, oh my God, where am I going? And then I just got, no way. I'm not going to there's no way. The thought was just no way. And I was back in my room. My room was cold. I remember I got up. My parents were still up in the other room. And I walked out, and I'm like, oh, you know, I just had this. And of course, they didn't believe me. But
they didn't believe you?
Oh, no.
But they didn't hear, we need you.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. But that area has had a lot of activity, of different types of activity. And, you know, we've since then seen things in my dad's house and, you know, different things. But it's definitely, I think what I did was I challenged something. And in the end, I think I won, but I was scarred for years from that. I couldn't meditate for years.
Come across with us.
That was sort of like what it was, only it was more metallic. Pretty scary.
Even more metallic. Come with us.
You got to change the pitch on that there, Art. Just kind of make it really metallic.
I don't know what to say about you. That's a scary one. All right, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You're
Take care. First time caller line, you're on the air on Ghost to Ghost AM. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I have a pretty scary story for you.
All right.
I have not spoken of this in 20 years. Matter of fact, my friend and I, we haven't spoken of it at all in probably the last 10 years. We used to belong to one of the oldest deer hunting clubs here in South Carolina. And we were hunting with dogs this particular Saturday. Of course, this area is rich in Civil War history.
Sure.
Anyway, story short, we had collected our dogs that we were hunting with. It was getting pretty late in the evening, and we rounded this curve in the road. We were back in a very remote area that had only been hunted maybe twice in the last 10 years. We had around 18 head of dogs with us. These dogs stopped suddenly and doubled back, just startled, just doubled back. They stopped. They were barking, just jumping around, hair bristled, you know, fangs pretty much bared, scared the hell out of us, you know. And it was misty looking, but what we saw in the edge of the woods was what appeared to be three figures. And we kind of looked at each other like, okay, you know.
Three figures.
Three figures. They appeared to be soldiers, like old Civil War soldiers, Confederate soldiers.
Really?
But you could not make out enough detail. You know, when the reason we thought Confederate soldiers, because you could see the hats, the short-brimmed hats.
Gotcha.
Okay. But what happened, we just stood there frozen. I don't know about him. I was scared to death. But we heard just a low voice saying, "Leave us alone. Stay away. You're not wanted here."
Oh, that'd do it for me.
And this gets very freaky. This was repeated 3-4 times. We took off in a dead run. Our truck was around the other side around this long curve. It felt like we had concrete blocks strapped to our feet. But could not get the truck doors open. When I got on my side, I could not get it open.
Yes, sir.
And we both hit the ground. I felt just an enormous heat come over me. Started vomiting, projectile vomiting, trembling, and still heard the voice saying, "You're not wanted here. Stay away. Leave us alone." This went on, I'm guessing, probably 15, 20 minutes, till finally we were able to get up, regain our composure, and get in the truck. We left dogs and everything.
You left the dogs?
We left the dogs. The dogs having no part of this. They were gone.
Uh-huh.
And I know this may sound amusing on one hand, but believe me, it was very terrifying. We got into the truck, got completely out of the hunting. It was about 5 miles back to the main highway. And we had to stop several times. It's only a 30-mile trip from our club back into the city of Columbia. We had to stop several times, fear of wrecking. And we were both very sick, very ill.
So this was no dream.
This was no dream.
This was no dream state. This was fully
not
awake.
alcohol-induced. This was not a redneck club. This club was comprised of doctors, lawyers, law enforcement personnel. My pastor was the president of it.
Well, one good thing, sir, you can follow directions. I have a feeling if you had not gotten out of there, you probably wouldn't be here now.
Well, I will say this to you, that the story goes that, see, our clubhouse is sitting on what is considered the old Sumter Highway.
Tell you what, can you hold?
I certainly can.
All right, stay right there. We'll finish the story after the break. The evidence is cumulative, and it becomes overwhelming, doesn't it? If you get our final hour, we'll be right back with more.
And we figured we were all so smart, ha ha ha. Well, my buddy dared me for $100, go in the house. And if the thing is, if you go into the house, then 9 bad things will happen to you.
That was a Canadian $100, I guess.
Yeah, I was hoping it would have been American, but it was a Canadian. $100 is $100. So I'm like, all right, you're on. I didn't think nothing of it. And so I was like, whatever. I get up there, I'm just shaking. I can feel this. It's like dark and I can see the shadows moving. I'm like, it's just trick of the car lights. I get up and I put my foot in. I'm about 2 feet in and I see the shadow come towards me and I get all icy. I'm all cold and this bird just flies right over my head. I'm out of there like a bat out of heck because I'm terrified of birds. And I go booking back to the car and they're all laughing at me. I'm like, okay, whatever. And we end up going back home because it's late and everyone's tired. So we drop everyone off and we go to my buddy's place. And he's way up in the west end of the city in what we like to call the ghetto part. It's like the poorest side of town. And we were watching the videotape. And we're watching the videotape of when I go into the house.
Yes.
When I come running out, There's no bird. It's a giant shadow that chases me out.
Do you have that on tape?
This is where it gets even weirder. We watched the tape one night. We went to go see some friends the next day. It's no longer on there. Our entire night was totally off the tape. We the original tape that was used, we had some stuff we recorded from a week before of just goofing around, and we taped over top of that. That's what was left. The actual ghost part was gone. This is where it gets even weirder. This is where the 9 things kick in. My car started breaking down and so on and so forth. And then 9 days later, at my buddy's place, one night his Rottweiler just went berserk. Like it started growling and barking at nothing. And the whole house, his house is normally like about 25 degrees. He likes it warm. Chilled. And he never gets scared. Him and his girlfriend ended up barricading themselves inside the bedroom with the dog, who wouldn't leave the bedroom. He would not. Like, they were just utterly petrified. He called me up, and I've known him for about 15 years, Art. I've never heard fear in his voice before, and he was petrified. And this kept on until sunrise. We thought nothing of it. 9 days after that, I'm sitting at work like I am now in the office, and I'm guarding the hotel, and I come on at midnight, and I go until 8 in the morning. And I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden, I'm totally, utterly petrified. I could not move from the office. I could not go outside. I had a feeling if I went outside that office door, I'd be killed. I was that petrified.
You know, this is really sounding more like a curse.
It's almost what it was. But this is
the nine curse.
This is where it even gets weirder. I phoned him up, and I'm like, I'm petrified. I totally freaked right out. I was doing my checks on the building, my security checks. Normally I walk through. I ran through all 4 floors and downstairs to the basement and ran back into this office. It normally takes about 20 minutes for a check. I did it in 5. And I had him on the phone all night, and I was petrified. And him and me got to talking. And we noticed that between the 9 days from his place to here, we're on the same 100 block. It's in a straight line. And we noticed that within those 9 days, like, this one guy ended up going, who had he had a sort of a bad background, but one night he went berserk and started shooting through the wall with a shotgun.
What?
Yeah, in the same 100 block, on the straight line. Another girl was murdered in that 9 days. More break and enters, more violent crimes, all the way in a straight line. And I'm like, well, hand me a map. So we mapped it out, and it's all in a straight line. And we continued watching like the newspaper, and in a straight line, straight out where that house is.
That's a total nightmare.
Where that barn is that house where we went to, yes, is directly in a straight line from that barn or house, to the hotel up to his house.
I think I've got it.
And in straight through, it was nothing but evil, right through.
The 9s. All right, we'll call that story the 9s. I appreciate the call. That sounds like a curse, doesn't it? Would it be almost unbearable, wouldn't it, watching something like that unfold once you had figured out what was going on and you had it plotted on the map the way he did, to watch it unfold and just move across 9s? Ugh. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Yeah, I've got some good ones for you. I grew up in a haunted house.
You grew up in a haunted house?
I grew up in a haunted house.
Okay, well, pick your best one and...
Okay, you want very evil?
We'll pick evil.
Okay, I was living in a house in Maryland, and evidently the area was all woods at one time. I have no idea what drew this thing to this house, but from the time we had moved in, things were going on. I would spend all day cleaning a room, and within 15 minutes, it was a total disaster again.
With nobody going in?
With nobody going in the room. One particular night, I had started sleeping on the couch for some reason upstairs in the living room, and the couch was across from the picture window. I felt the couch rocking, head to toe. And
You've already done more than I would have done. I mean, if somebody was screwing up these rooms after you cleaned them, you could either only presume somebody was going in and, messing with your work, or
there was something going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And
So
so
I
even
thought it was poltergeist activity because I had two young ladies in the house, and I figured it would pass.
mm-hmm,
Well, when the couch started rocking back and forth,
mm-hmm.
I came slightly awake, and I said, "No, it's my imagination. I'm asleep." Nice right off, right?
Oh, sure.
Until I felt two hands go down on my ankle, lift me solidly off the couch, and hurl me toward the window.
What?
Uh-huh.
It picked you up by the ankles and threw you toward the window?
Yeah. I came full awake. I yelled, "Lord, send help now," and I hit the floor.
Whew. And?
I turned around, and it had nice, glowing red eyes.
And,
I left the house, stayed outside all night.
no, I take it the Lord did not immediately intervene. Otherwise, red
No,
eyes would have been gone,
he
right?
didn't get rid of them, but he made it stop so I wasn't going through the window. And as far as I know, red eyes is still there.
Mm.
Says I've moved halfway across the country, and from what I've heard, the people that bought the house have tried to rent it over and over again. Nobody stays in this house more than 5 months.
Did you know, not too many people know, but did you know that in a lot of places, the law says that if you have a haunted house, you have got to notify potential buyers of that fact under the law?
Yes, that wasn't the case in Maryland.
Maryland's a pretty haunted place. There's no question about that.
I did tell friends of mine, and they kept saying, "Well, get the place exorcised." We tried that. It came back.
You actually went to an exorcist?
We went to one of the priests in town who did the floral blessing of the house. This thing would come and go at will.
Well, I appreciate the call. I don't like things with red eyes. I've never liked things with red eyes. To me, for some reason, that is evil personified, red glowing eyes. I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. Evil personified. Nightmare stuff. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I got a story from you from Okinawa.
Okinawa?
Yeah.
I spent, as you know, over a decade on the island of Okinawa.
I was stationed there from 94 to 97.
Really?
Yes. And during that time, my neighbor was a pilot. And
Okay, listen, I just realized I'm close to a break. Can you hold on?
Sure.
All right, a story about Okinawa. This will be good. Stay right there. I'm Art Bell. A very old friend came by today, 'cause he was telling everyone in town all the lost and deep to found and the reason men of the rape ranging. Keep talking, 'cause I heard him say that she had the longest blackest hair, the prettiest green eyes anywhere, and the reason they
describe it. And I would put the books down.
So was it ever so annoyingly hot that you would intentionally call on whatever this was to get it cold?
That's a good idea. I'll think about that this summer when our electric bill comes in.
Yeah.
And I would put it down, and then I would go look through the Bible to see what kind of scriptures that said, and then, it would, dissipate. And then every time I would go read these books, it would get absolutely so cold. And I just thought, I didn't think anything about it, well, except for cool, I was ignorant, I guess. I didn't really think anything about it. I guess after a week, I was reading, and I kept feeling like there was something watching me, following me around, and it would just be a really weird presence in the house. My husband was working, the baby would be napping, or he would look at something like he was like a cat tracked something, and he would start crying. And I would say, what is going on? And this would go on. And then I was at the kitchen sink. It's an old house, with the windows, those old, neat, deep sinks. I was washing dishes, and I wasn't thinking about anything that I was reading. It was just a very hot, sultry day, and all of a sudden, Art, I felt these very thick, cold, icy fingers touch my shoulders, move up to my neck, wrap around my neck, and gave me a gentle squeeze.
Oh, my God.
That's about what I said, too. And it scared me. I don't remember what I did. I think I was too scared to even say, oh, God. I just could not move. And there was this always when I would feel like something was following me, and especially at that time when those icy fingers touched me, there would be this awful kind of like boiled egg smell in the house.
Rotten eggs, yes.
Yeah, rotten eggs, right.
Sulfur, actually.
Sulfur, that's right. But that was the most empty, void of any kind of compassion, light, or whatever evil sensation I have ever felt. It
Yeah,
went
well,
so
after hearing your whole story, I'd rather suffer the heat.
yeah, really, that's why we probably won't, call on that thing this summer. But when you have a toothache, you know how it hurts so bad you don't know how you think, gosh, is my jaw that deep?
Right.
That's how cold I felt, so deep inside my soul. I didn't realize that I was really that thick. It was so deep. Well, after that, I thought, forget this noise. So I took all those books, I took them to the patio, put them in our hibachi, and I torched the things.
Wow.
And that I have never had anything happen like that since. Not like we've had things happen, but not like that, not evil.
Well, that sure is some story, man.
Well, thank you for the time.
Take care, Deb.
Oh, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, well, so then, is it an entity that was attached to those books? Could some of those books just have been inherently evil in some manner? A cold thing that would eventually reach up and grip your neck? Ugh, I don't blame her. I would have burned them too. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art. How are you?
I'm all right, sir. Where are you?
I'm in Nashville. My name's Jeff.
Yes, sir.
I guess what my story kind of starts. I was in sixth grade, and I have a younger brother, who's about 18 months younger than me, and we used to visit an elderly couple in an old house that was next door to us. It was a small town, and our house sat beside this old house, and then right beside it was a big church, and we used to go there every day, basically, just to catch up with them, tell them how our day was and everything. And every time we were over there, we only stayed in the kitchen of the house. But every time we were over there, there would be a door that would slam, and it would come from upstairs. And we didn't think anything of it, my brother and I. It's just, but one of the couple would always go upstairs after the door had slammed.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the only two that lived in the house, and they were always in the kitchen with us when it happened. And I didn't think anything of it. And I was upstairs only once in the house, and the elderly man was giving me some stamps, and it happened that the door slammed again while we were up there. And it kind of was like, well, it's an old drafty house. It kind of looked like one of the like from a Scooby-Doo mansion.
Yes.
It was so it was almost like the rest of the house outside of the kitchen was modern, but the rest of the house just absorbed light. It was so dark. The wood was so dark, and
Sure.
it was kind of creepy. But I never felt ill at ease there. But I got into high school, and I was at a hayride, and one of the girls who was out of high school knew most of the folklore about the town, and she was telling us that there was a house next to a church in town where someone had committed suicide. And yeah, and I was like, well, which church? Because there was about 3 churches in there. And she told me it was the Presbyterian church, and sure enough, that was the house that I used to live next door to and would go to every day, and hear this door slam upstairs. And oh man, this is where it gets a little creepy. One Halloween, we had taken pictures outside of me and my brother and my younger sister out in the yard with that house in the background.
Right.
And we had a strange occurrence on the film itself. It looked like, you know what a double exposure looks like.
Of course.
But, oh man, it's creeping me out.
What was it that you saw in that photograph?
There was, it was a picture of me and my brother and my sister.
Right.
And it was like our body or our presence had shifted all the way over and away from where that room is in the background of the picture, and our presence had kind of shifted over away from ourselves. It was, but that our bodies were the only thing that were double exposed that looked double exposed in the picture, and there's it was a little vaporous kind of thing going on there too. It was and we'd taken like 3 pictures outside that day of us in our Halloween outfits, and the one with the room in the background was the only one that was different.
Well, then I've got to ask you the same thing. Do you still have the photograph?
I believe my mother has it, and I think she has a scanner, so I'll have her look for that, and I'll send it to you.
Boy, we live in some day and age, don't we, when Mom has a scanner.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Well, all right. I appreciate your call and your story, and I wish we had more time, folks, but we are out of time, as it were. Sorry about that. It always rushes by. Ghost to Ghost is, as I said, something we're going to be doing more of during the year than just, at Halloween, because it's so interesting and because things are changing out there. We're beginning to, I don't know, we're getting close to a big change. Don't you think? I do. Have a good night, everybody, and tomorrow night is going to be very, very interesting. Brittany Petro from Big Brother is going to be here, and then we're going to have a guest on reality TV. It's going to be a different kind of night, but I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm Art Bell from the high deserts, the desert of the sea. Good night.
Now again, here I am. My guest is Harvard professor John Mack, and we'll get back to him in just a moment. I would say a million questions to ask. We'll never have time for all of them. I do promise you we will get the telephone lines open shortly, so stay right where you are. Harvard professor John Mack. Dr. Mack.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Mack, what about, we were talking about the way people are affected by this. What about the generally deeply religious people? How are they affected?
Well, sometimes at first, like there's one man that was raised as a fundamentalist Christian, and initially he thought that these were demons, and the people in his community said that they were demons. Mm-hmm. And then he realized that they were something else. He wasn't quite sure what, but that it was some kind of actual beings or some kind of actual experience that was occurring in his life, and that he had a relationship with these creatures, and that this was something different than his religious training. A lot of times when people are not familiar with the abduction syndrome, religious people will say, well, this is the work of the devil, that God would never appear in such a strange form of humanoid beings, and they get labeled as embodiment of demons. But people, there's no particular pattern of religious background associated with this, or reaction that's associated with different kinds of religious experience, which is one of the reasons, by the way, why the phenomenon seems to me to be so real and so robust, because it kind of takes precedence over people's religious experience. In other words, it's not an expression of some kind of religious background. It has its own shape and form which cuts across all religious backgrounds.
Huh. Is there any indication with all of your research about what these beings want, or what the focus of their attention is during these abductions?
The difficulty with that question is that that what they, I mean, then you're dealing with sort of alien psychology. But what the pattern that tends to occur has to do with some kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but I guess reproductive, joining with us, perhaps, is the best way. In other words, there's over and over and over again, there's a description of sperm being taken from men, eggs from women, reimplantation of a fertilized egg with something done to it through the alien principle, whatever this is, then the fetus removed from the woman later on. All of this again, and then finally the abductee being taken to see these hybrid offspring in the craft. So there's some kind of reproductive program here. Now, again, I don't take this quite as literally as some of my colleagues do. In other words, I don't know, again, in what reality this is occurring. No, there is not a documented case of an actual pregnancy that was tested for and then found mysteriously to be removed. There's no question there's some physiological changes occur in the women, and they experience a fetus being taken. No question about that. And it's not simply their imagination. But I'm very leery about saying that any of these things occur literally in our reality. I mean, that, as you said in the what do you call it, the program notes for the beginning of your program, even though things are strange and not necessarily in our reality, it doesn't make them any less real.
That's right.
But they're not necessarily real in the literal physical terms. For example, nobody's actually got a picture of these hybrid beings, or of the aliens at all, for that matter, that's reliable. But to the abductees, and this is not a delusion, their connection with these hybrid beings is very powerful. And in fact, one of the most poignant things that a person can go through who works with abductees is to take them through the memory of being taken into the ship and confronted with a hybrid being and told, this is yours, and they sort of know it's theirs because it sort of looks like them, and then asked to hold this creature and to nurture it. Wow. And they know that they have no control of when they'll ever see it again, and yet they feel somehow they are supposed to bond with this creature or it won't do well. And it's a very real and disturbing phenomenon. The woman may weep on my couch when that is recalled.
So again, it has something to do with reproduction, obviously. All right.
So that's one thing, but that's not the whole story. Another very powerful part, and this is, again, there's a fair amount of controversy about this. Another powerful part has to do with what might be called ecological messages. Mm-hmm. A message comes through to the humans that you humans are treating the earth as if you owned it, as if it was here just for you to destroy, to exploit, as a kind of giant marketplace to be consumed, disposed of, and for the purpose of this one species that has developed the technology of agriculture and of city building and mining and basically the power to remove the surface of the earth and its resources and destroy the earth as a living system. And over and over and over again, the communication comes to us from these beings, and it's powerfully felt by the abductees. This can't go on. In other words, this is not yours to do this with. Now,
do you get the sense, Doctor, they are saying this to us as our creators or simply as concerned beings?
There's nothing to suggest that often the abductees, and again, this is quite controversial, and in UFO circles, I'm sort of seen as kind of, gone soft New Age or something, but there's nothing soft or New Age about this. This is a hard-edged, reality that is being smashed into the abductees with tremendous power, and which shakes them up enormously. And these are not people that necessarily, environmentalists. They're often uneducated people who hadn't thought about these things. And one man said, "But I'm just a simple person. What am I supposed to do about the Earth?" And they said, "Well, you got to find a way, because you love nature and you don't want to see the Earth destroyed." And then he's become very, very active and concerned about this. I mean, a woman that got this message began teaching about ecology in the classroom and getting the other teachers to include that in their courses. I mean, another man who had a very powerful abduction experience at age 9, which deeply filled his mind with images of the destruction of the Earth, and he's become one of the most extraordinary businessmen in terms of his commitment to the sustainability of the Earth's living system. So it's a very real, very powerful part of this thing. And often the abductees will, rather than saying this is directly from the Creator, will see the alien beings as emissaries from some divine source. Intermediaries is often the word they use, that they're closer to the source than we are. They're often described as well, the one type they call directly light beings. They're not all grays. They're these taller, more luminous beings that they call light beings. But even the little grays themselves are seen as being more closely connected with the source of creation.
Wow. I see. That almost stops me. Let me ask you this. What about children versus adults? In the cases that you have studied, how many have involved children? They are particularly interesting, of course.
Yeah, I've seen about 8 or 10 children now who have this syndrome. 2 of them under 3, which, by the way, Art, is one of the reasons why it's very difficult to utilize any kind of fancy personality theory to explain the abduction story, because it would be difficult to apply such theories to children as young as 2 and a half. When a little boy, as in the case of mine, says, "Mommy, the owls came," because the big eyes often make the children think of owls. The owls came in the night, and or "Mommy, the little men came in the night and took me into the sky, and you didn't stop them." They say it with fear. It's hard to attribute that to some kind of, deep-seated personality problem.
Sure is. They don't have one yet. Well, that's remarkable, and I would guess it would take a very sensitive adult or parent to discern what's happened to this child versus just the usual "you had a bad dream, dear."
Yeah, but if the child over and over again points to the sky and says, "I went up there last night, and they took me up, and the house went away," and they say that very clearly and vividly, it doesn't sound like a nightmare.
No, it doesn't. Although I still think most parents would say, "Well, you just had a bad dream, dear."
Well, that may be. In other words, it may be that the ones where the parents come to realize that this is something more than a bad dream may be the minority. There may be lots of cases out there, even in your radio audience, where the parents haven't realized what was going on.
Huh. Well, all right. I would very much like to get to the telephones, which we'll do shortly. But, Dr. Mack, I would like to, I guess I'd like to first ask you about your critics and what you would like to say to your critics. You're in a very prestigious position. You've really got your neck out. What made you stick your neck out? And now that it's out, how do you handle your critics?
Well, I get criticized from all sorts of directions. I mean, the most serious critics are the ones that say that, well, you can't prove this with physical evidence, therefore you can't claim that anything extraordinary is going on here. And my answer to that is that we have to expand our notions of evidence. As my strong suit, as I said earlier, is clinical diagnosis. In other words, when you have thousands of people reporting in great detail very, very similar accounts, which they themselves are skeptical about. They themselves have not, as the woman that we talked about earlier, have not read about this. They are doubters, and they're troubled when they hear that somebody else has had the experience. It shocks them. When you hear, and the narratives are spoken about reluctantly, when you hear something like that, you know that you're dealing with something that occurred, something that happened to people. That's not the way psychosis works, or dreams work, or displacements from other kind of traumas. This is something happened. Now,
all right. Well, Doctor, if you were asked for evidence, physical evidence, to prove most psychiatric diagnosis, it would not be possible, would it?
That's right. And but the thing about this that I've said over and over again, this simply cannot be. In other words, in our worldview, the universe cannot contain intelligences that behave like this. In other words, we don't believe that there are other intelligences that other than that which is part of the human imagination. So when these beings show up as real and enter our physical world, and actually in some occasions people are witnessed to be missing during the abductions. Children will find their parents missing, or parents will find their well, it works both ways. Children find the parents missing, parents find the children missing, friends find each other gone. I mean, there are not a lot of those well documented, but there are some. Or there are the whole variety of physical findings that we're familiar with, of cuts and scoop marks and complex patterned ulcers and other lesions on people's bodies that follow the abduction experiences. Those physical findings are important. They wouldn't stand up by themselves medically, just on their own. But when you combine them with the experiences, you've got a whole, and the fact that this occurs in such young children, and people are of sound mind, you have a whole, and of course what tends to be forgotten is there's a very tight association with UFOs here. In other words, the UFO may be observed in the community by when the abductee hasn't seen it themselves. In other words, I have cases where a neighbor says, there was a funny-looking craft over your house, and the person, oh my God, and they've had an abduction experience. Or a famous case up our way where a UFO was tracked by virtually all the media in a northeasterly direction, and abductees reporting their experiences that coincided with the media tracking of the UFOs. In other words, you've got to take this entire set of phenomena together if you're going to account for this. Just to single out some sort of psychological aspect of the person misses much of the phenomenon. So, and my critics tend to do that. In other words, they say, well, I'm just sort of gullible about believing these people. Well, it's not a matter of believing them. It's a matter of the fact that the most economical explanation of what the person is reporting is that they're telling the truth. And even if the truth isn't supposed to be, the fact that something can't exist doesn't keep it from happening.
Indeed. Speaking of that and keeping it from happening, I would think that one thing they would desperately want is to prevent it from occurring again if it scared them or they found it disagreeable, which I assume most do. Is there any way at all to prevent it?
Well, Ann Druffel and Dr. Hazel Brandman in North Carolina, people have tried to develop ways of doing that. My people have not been too successful with that, and also, one of the most curious things about this, and here again, this is a controversial area within the UFO abduction researchers or investigators, shall we say, themselves, is that the phenomenon, in my experience, changes over time. In other words, that as the person goes deep into their experience and acknowledges the reality of it, and demands, as in some cases, a more reciprocal, more equal relationship with the alien beings, the experience changes. It becomes more reciprocal. There is an exchange of information. People are often work alongside the aliens, or they feel they're part of some evolutionary process in which this life is being planned for a future after human beings have destroyed the Earth as a living system. In other words, this is they feel they're part of some larger cosmic evolutionary process, and they themselves undergo some kind of spiritual change, and they may participate in this hybrid program much more willingly, and it becomes less of a traumatic kind of experience, hard as that may be to believe.
Kind of like learning to love the bomb.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that's one of the major questions here. Is this simply like that? In other words, it's an evil, but we've adapted to it, or is this in some way by its very nature, a spiritually evolutionary kind of phenomenon? Because a lot of people feel that it is.
Sounds like you believe that it is. Do you advise?
I don't know. I think that there's so many of the people, when they go deeply into their experience, stay with it, and go through, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions, they come to a place where there's very great spiritual growth, deep love between them and the alien beings, which is not just, the Stockholm syndrome where you sort of love your captors or something.
Yes.
There's one of the men in my book, Peter, talked about a lost brotherhood that we and a number of abductees have talked about this, that we derived from a common source. We were separated. That's maybe why they're humanoid, that we grew separately in some kind of evolution of beings or consciousness from some common divine source, and that this is a coming back together in the context of the ecological crisis on the planet.
All right, we're about at the bottom of the hour, Doctor, but is that what you encourage when somebody wants to know how to handle it? Do you encourage them to move in that direction?
I don't encourage anything. What I do allow the person to do is to have their experience. In other words, to be with them, to hold the energy with them, to allow the trauma to unfold, and to go with them wherever they're going to go.
All right.
I have been accused of influencing people, for instance, and a woman that transcribed 2,200 pages of tapes of mine says there's not one sentence
All right, Doctor,
where I influenced anybody.
Doctor, we've got to break off there. Harvard professor John Mack, right back. And this is a very unusual opportunity for you to speak with Harvard professor Dr. John Mack. And we're going to go to the telephones in just a moment. So if you're ready, I think we're ready. Dr. Mack, you there?
Yep.
Good. I have one question before we go to the telephones. And it is, we know about the abductions that people tell you about and many others about because they come back to tell us. But there are, in this country and others, many missing children, many missing adults. Do you suppose, Dr. Mack, there are abductions where the person is not returned?
I don't think so. I just don't think that's the way it works. I mean, I haven't studied that, but my sense is that those are more human kidnappings. I mean, because with certain exceptions, like the Travis Walton case, which was made into this movie, what is it, Fire in the Sky?
That's right.
That he was gone for 5 or 6 days, but usually it's a matter of 2 or 3 hours. It's not a long phenomenon. And there may be cases where, I did hear of one case where a small airplane disappeared out in the Bermuda Triangle area, but I mean, you can't really. It didn't go into the water, but it was taken up. But
sure.
At least that was the recollection of people that studied it. But I don't think it's not well corroborated, and I don't really believe that there's any evidence that those are abduction cases.
This is the end of side 1. Please leave the cassette exactly where it is. Flip it.
One last question, then we'll go to the phones. If you were faced with an abduction yourself, Dr. Mack, with all you know about abductions, would you submit to it given choice, or would you run like hell?
Oh, God. It's a strange thing. I mean, where we're located in the culture. I mean, I've never had an abduction experience, and I think that this is so controversial, and I think they're protecting me. In one sense, I'd sort of like to know what it's like so I could authenticate it more easily for people. On the other hand, I think probably my credibility would suffer, so I probably am better off.
So you might submit to it, but not tell anybody?
Yeah, I suppose. If you admit you've had these experiences, then that's
right.
just another way of disqualifying you. You know.
That's exactly right, Doctor. Let's try a few telephone calls, see what's out there. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Hi.
Yes, Doctor. I have a list of the doctors that were on that information, the false memory board. Some of them worked on Project Pandora, Slammer, and MK Ultra, and some others. I was trying to find it to fax you, or to fax to the station.
All right, are you wanting a list of researchers, ma'am? Is that it?
No, I have them.
You have them?
I have them.
I would imagine Dr. Mack does as well. All right, thank you very much. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Harvard Professor John Mack. Hi.
Yes.
Hi, where are you, ma'am?
San Diego.
San Diego.
Uh-huh.
What is your question?
I wanted to ask him why it is possible to somehow either audio or videotape record people's bedrooms that have repeat experiences and maybe get something on tape or film.
All right.
A lot of people have tried to do that. The question is, why don't we have more audio tapes and videotapes? And people try to do that, and they will report some buzzing sound or beeping sound, and then you listen to the audio tape, and I'm never quite convinced it's that clear. And videotapes, there's one case that Bud Hopkins reports where they had a videotape running all night, and you see people. There's no videotape of the actual abduction, but you see somehow the videotape gets turned off, and you see the people before the abduction. Then you see them in a somewhat different relationship or coming back after the abduction, but you never see anything in between. And one of the properties that this phenomenon has, the energy properties, is to affect all kinds of tricks with electronic media. I mean, it would be if they did not, whatever this they is, did not want to be discovered, they would have no problem in incapacitating a video camera. I mean, that would be
child's play. Child's play to them, sure. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Hi.
Hi.
Yes, sir. Turn your radio off and tell us where you're calling from, please.
I'm calling from the St. Louis area. My name is Forrest Crawford.
Forrest,
nice to hear you in St. Louis, John.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I've got a question relating to people who have experiences with aliens that are not fearful, for instance, of their experiences, or they come away with more than a traumatic rendition of that experience, and then compared to someone else who has an experience, say, with the same kind of aliens and the same taxonomy and scenario happens, but then they're very fearful and traumatized. Basically, I'm asking for you to comment on what do you think attributes to that?
That I think that psychology or psychiatry might have something to offer. In other words, for example, there's the last case in my book is the case of a man in his late 30s, a businessman, who has what I would call a very kind of advanced state of consciousness. In other words, he's open to anything that's possible. He's not someone who has to be in control. He's a person that can let in experience. And when he was 9 years old, a huge UFO, illuminated the car that his mother was driving. They were coming back from the movies in upstate New York, and there were two of his older sister, younger brother, were in the car, and everybody but him was frightened. In other words, the mother was terrified, the sister was frightened, the little boy was frightened, and the mother sort of pushed them down, and he was all excited. And he was accepted this thing, and he felt there was a communication from the beings that were in the craft. And in the hypnosis session, he was actually taken up into the craft and given all kinds of information about the future and what he was supposed to do and this kind of. There was nothing traumatic about it at all. No, he was open, receptive. He had that kind of consciousness. Whereas I think people that are more closed in themselves, more restricted in their minds, more wanting to maintain control of everything around them are more likely to have a traumatic experience. It seems to be that there's some relationship between the evolution or state of consciousness of the abductee and the nature of the experience.
So it may be their paradigm could be causing their difference in reaction to the experiences.
Something like that. There was something in the state of mind, the receptivity, the openness. I mean, I've known, for example, a woman who is a leader in, understanding, shamanism and consciousness change and evolutionary thinking, whose abduction experiences from the beginning have been informational, with luminous beings and not with the sort of tough little grays.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Doctor, have you made any determination about how many different types of beings have been described to you?
To me, about 5 kinds, but there are people that have more information about that than I do. Jim Harder, for instance, in the Berkeley area, he knows many more types than I do. He's been studying this for 20 years. Linda Howe has described all kinds. Mine have been restricted to the little grays, the more taller luminous beings, the sort of reptilian-looking ones, sometimes praying mantis-like creatures are seen, and then various sort of more human-looking ones that work alongside the other beings on the ships. But I'm not an alien demographer.
I understand. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Hello, where are you calling from, please?
Calling from Northern California, Art.
Yes, sir.
You have a great show tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. Mack if there's any similarities between the people that have been abducted. Significant.
Now, that's a very good question, and the fact that there, as far as we can tell, is not, have not been any psychological characteristics found, is again one of the pieces of evidence that we're dealing with something that isn't related to the personality or personal background or conflicts of the individuals. There are people that have had very disrupted, unhappy lives from working class families, but there are also cases from very wealthy families, professional families, where it's been very loving, intact families, as in the case of the businessman that I talked about earlier, was the last chapter in my book. There's every type of profession represented, including psychiatrists, diplomats, writers.
All right, so it's very diverse. What about a mix between male and female? Is there anything noticeable there?
Well, it depends. Thomas Bullard found more men in his survey. Other people have found more women. It seems fairly equal. I think that the men may have somewhat more trouble reporting their experiences because there's a little bit more shame connected with it.
Barrier, kind of a barrier.
Because it's to be so helpless, so passively unable to do anything is really terrible for women and men, but it's particularly shameful.
Traumatic or shameful,
they don't often tell you about it.
That's right, because a man has a kind of a control thing, doesn't he?
A little more, yeah. I mean, to be made helpless, have a cup put over the penis and sperm taken. The first case in my book is a man who, when he was 16, he and his friend were in a Nash Rambler, and they were sleeping, and the beings came and they took him into, the female being took him into a pod, and he described some sort of, in a somewhat macho way, a sexual encounter, and then the information that was given to him about the state of the earth and so forth. But under hypnosis, this turned out to be much more humiliating. It was the more typical cup put over his penis, and the female being in charge sort of watched over this and said, we're not here for sex, and we're here to take your sperm, and he found it really quite humiliating. So
he modified the story when he told it elsewhere.
When he told the story consciously, which again relates to the question about hypnosis. I mean, here, his conscious recall, because he wanted to represent himself to himself and to me in a more favorable light, was less accurate, in my view, than what came out when he was relaxed under hypnosis and brought forth what was a much more typical account of being forced into this situation. So,
Gee, the diversity in the stories is in itself revealing, isn't it?
yeah, and it tends to counter the notion that hypnosis is distorting, because the conscious ego did more distorting in that situation than hypnosis.
Exactly. All right, on the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Good evening. No, I guess you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Hello.
Hello, yes.
Where are you calling from, sir?
Missoula.
Missoula, Montana. All right.
Have you ever considered the possibility that these creatures are not aliens, but maybe they're from the future?
Oh, yes, thank you. And the dimensional question, you mentioned the possibility of other dimensions earlier. What is your thinking on this?
Well, I think that it's a good question. There's no reason to believe that entities, beings that have the technology to have UFOs that can flick on and off the radar screen, that can go 7,000 miles an hour in one direction, make a sharp right-angle turn, and with no skid. In other words, they've overcome any ideas we have about gravity, and that they can float people through walls, evidently, and there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't be able to move through time in some way. You know, that's certainly a possibility. What was the other part of your question?
Well, he's gone now, but that was the basis of his question. Could they be from the future, I believe he said,
Yeah.
And I added other dimensions.
Yeah, the other dimension, that was your question. Yeah, I mean, this whole dimension thing is increasingly physicists are talking, we talk about string theory and talk about, there's a physicist, Ron Bryan, who sees in subatomic particles that you can't account for all of them within the physics, the subatomic physics that we have in the four-dimensional universe, that we need additional dimensions, and that Fred Alan Wolf is a guy named Bonansky who's written a book about other dimensions that these beings could come from. That was originally Jacques Vallée's idea, that they exist in a parallel universe, that they pass into our universe, so that they, again, that would tend to go against trying to, locate that they're from this or that planet or this or that star in one or another galaxy. That it may be that they exist in some dimension that we don't even understand. Abductees will often say, by the way, during their experiences, as they recall their experiences, this is not occurring in space-time as I know it, and it's hard for them to. They find that very difficult to put into words, but the message is consistent, that this is not happening in our space-time universe to them. That one woman put it, all time dimensions collapsed into one time, or something like that. In other words, that we don't have language for it, but that the altered state alters the sense, as they recall the experience, alters the sense of space and time. And I think that's a much underappreciated fact. In other words, we're too ready to try to see this thing literally as occurring in our physical universe, rather than expanding our notions of reality to other dimensions, other possible universes that are not simply our physical four-dimensional.
All right, well, while we're on that subject, I interviewed Mr. Monroe from the Monroe Institute a few weeks ago, and he talks a great deal about out-of-body travel, which is clearly some sort of altered state, and I wonder if it has any relationship to either the altered states that we've been examining tonight, or whether the out-of-body process also has some relationship to what we're discussing.
The argument against that Bud Hopkins and others have used is that the people are really gone. In other words, it's not just an out-of-body experience, as he puts it, it's an out-of-the-house experience.
Yeah, they're physically gone.
You're physically gone, but I don't know that it's either-or. In other words, sometimes people will experience themselves floating above their bodies, or that they've entered the ship, but they're not sure the body is left. And there may be gradations in between, that there is a separation of consciousness and the body. That has been the experience of a number of people. Now, again, all kinds of tricks of consciousness seem to occur in this phenomenon, and it's not just, I don't believe, and much more research needs to be done. I don't believe it's simply literally that the person is physically removed. I think there's maybe something to be learned from the out-of-body, out-of-body studies, but I don't know more about that.
All right. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Good evening. Where are you calling from?
This is Bryce in Wichita Art.
Hi, Bryce.
Hi. Dr. Mack, it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah,
I remember reading a long time ago, and I've been trying to find it, Carl Jung kind of prophesied that there'd be a big surgence of flying saucer sightings and contactees and such. And he attributed it more to spiritual beings than he did to aliens.
Well, yeah, he wrote this was before the abduction syndrome had been identified, but he wrote about flying saucers and saw them as what he called psychoid phenomenon. So it was something which exists in the psycho-spiritual realm, but shows up in the physical realm and is perceived by people. In other words, it breaks down the barrier between the spiritual, the psychological, and the physical. It's a crossover phenomenon, and I think there's a lot to that. I think one of the most extraordinary aspects of this, and I think one of the things that's kind of going back to my critics, gotten people so mad, is that there's we've created a kind of sacred barrier between the spiritual domain and the physical domain, as if they should never meet. It's kind of like separation of church and state. And in fact, I've even been accused of breaking down the distinction of church and state and opening the doors to fascism by my saying that this is both spiritual and physical at the same time. In other words, that this does that. It crosses that sacred barrier. Something that should be in the unseen realm, should be in the spiritual realm, should be mythic, should be beings that are part of the imagination, or that we would study in departments of anthropology, but that it shows up in this hard-edged way in our physical world. That's a crime against humanity from the standpoint of the Western worldview.
Do you think you're beginning to cross that barrier, Doctor, because of hard evidence in your research, or because of a kind of desperation to explain the inexplicable?
I think that we simply don't have another way to think about it. In other words, that you're dealing with something that does show up in the physical world. I mean, we do have physical evidence. It's not as good as the critics would like. But then, I want to say something about that. The critics keep demanding, good physical evidence. But, I've had people admit that it wouldn't matter what physical evidence we had. They just wouldn't believe it because it can't be. In other words, that if a piece of a UFO were found in a field by a teenage boy, they'd examine the teenage boy, find him psychotic and unreliable, and destroy the pedigree. They actually did find, in a crop formation in Germany, a plate that was dug up in the crop formation, which had all the same symbols on it that the crop formation itself had. And this plate has been studied, analyzed, found to have metals in it that are peculiar and haven't been found anyplace else. And that has not gotten the publicity that you would think that it had, because it is the smoking gun, it is the physical artifact that they're all asking for. So what they do in that case is just not pay that much attention to it. I mean, that would be the exact thing that they're asking for, the critics ask for, but, if we're not ready for it, it's like the, meteorites in the scientists who discovered meteorites in Europe, repressed the evidence for 39 years because he thought he would be ridiculed if he said that objects could fall from the sky.
All right, Doctor, we're going to pause there. We're at the top of the hour, so rest for about 6 or 7 minutes. When we come back, we're going to tell people how to get your book, all right?
Okay.
All right, Dr. Mack, stay right there. Harvard Professor John Mack is my guest. Fascinating session. Still plenty of time to get in if you would like to. We've got another hour to go. You're listening to a Sunday Evening Dreamland On the CBC Radio Network, I'm Art Bell.
Now again, here's Art Bell.
Now, once again, here I am. My guest is Harvard professor John Mack, and we're talking about human abductions by aliens. And we'll get back to Dr. Mack in just a moment. Would also like to tell everybody out there, you can get a copy of tonight's Dreamland program, or any Dreamland program in the entire series, by calling area code 503 664-7966. Let me give that to you one more time. To obtain a copy of this program or any Dreamland segment, you can call area code 503-664-7966. Back now to Harvard professor John Mack. Professor Mack, what is the title of your book?
It's called Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens. Pretty straightforward.
Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens. And where, I take it is a compilation of a lot of the research.
Yeah, the first two chapters are overviews of the phenomenon as I and others have described it, both historically and in terms of what an actual abduction experience is like. And then there are 13 cases that I've seen that illustrate various aspects of the phenomenon. The cases tend to get more complex and deeper into the meaning of the phenomenon as one goes through the book. And the last chapter is kind of a blue sky look at what the whole thing might mean, what its implications are for psychology, for the human future, for ecology, for our spiritual development, that kind of thing, which is not factual necessarily, but derives from the cases themselves.
All right. Who publishes?
Scribner's.
And where can folks get it?
Well, I hope they can get it in any bookstore in their town. If they can't, I hope they'll tell their book dealers to try to get it.
But it's fairly widely available.
I think so.
All right, very good. I think anybody who's been abducted or is concerned about the phenomenon would certainly go out and get it. I'm sure it's, and I'd very much like to read it myself. I have not yet, Dr. Mack. Hi there, on the toll-free line, you're on the air with Professor Mack.
Good evening. This is Fritz from Phoenix calling.
Yes, Fritz.
Mine is more like a statement. In the early 40s, Dr. Wilhelm Reich, a scientist way ahead of its time, was researching cosmic energy. He was finding an energy field he called orgone energy. Now, the government destroyed his life work, put the books away, put him in prison where Dr. Reich mysteriously died. Now, today, with a global shrinking constantly, the information is exchanged faster than ever. We are on a higher level of understanding. Now, Dr. Mack, the ball is in your court. Run with it. The reward will be unimaginable. Do what Dr. Reich couldn't do.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's not as if there isn't an awful lot of what that interesting call gets us into is the whole question of what is the resistance in this culture to accepting that something important is going on. Mind you, that doesn't mean we understand it. That doesn't mean we know what these energies are or what these beings are or what their ultimate purpose is. But it seems to me that it's worth looking at why this creates so much controversy, why on the one hand people deny it, why they want to find anything but, I mean, you say, well, it's threatening, but why is it threatening and how is it threatening?
Well, the unknown is always threatening, always a little frightening.
But what makes this more unknown than anything else? I mean, we've never really understood life itself or why we're here or what death is like or what happens beyond the earth. I mean, it seems to me that if we're connected with other intelligences in the universe, that isn't any more frightening than being totally isolated in a dead universe, which is what with nothing but energy and matter. I mean, that it seems to me that there would be it would be a subject of fascination. I just wonder why there is such a terrific
Well, what kind of answers do you come up with? Is it religious based? Is it some other part of our social structure? Where?
I think it has to do with what you were talking about earlier, the need to feel that we're somehow in control. I sometimes call it the Astrodome mentality, you know, that we can somehow wall ourselves off from nature and control nature, and that we're the top of the intelligence pecking order in the cosmos. And not only does this show that we're not at the top, that there's other intelligences probably far greater than our own in certain capacities anyway, but they can also do with us what they will, take us against our will, and show us that we're not in control. I mean,
well, maybe one could suggest, Doctor, there's not enough evidence to support that egotistical sort of narrow view either.
What do you mean?
Well, in other words, that we are alone, that we are the only intelligence. That's an egotistical sort of protective sort of view, and there's really not enough evidence to support that either, and rarely do I hear it challenged that way.
I think that's well put. In other words, the burden of proof is always put on on somebody that says that there is other intelligence in the universe, whereas that seems to me it ought to be the other way around.
Well, or at least equally challenged.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that an I don't know attitude might be the healthiest one.
Mm-hmm. On the wild card line, you're on the air with Professor John Mack. Hi.
I would like Dr. Mack to describe the circumstances of how he first became associated with financier Lawrence Rockefeller.
All right. How about that? Are you wrapped up with Rocky?
I know Lawrence Rockefeller. I mean, I've known him for a number of years. I've known other members of his family. He's been interested in work that I've done, and I've been to meetings.
Well, I'll give you where that call.
I don't understand the question.
Well, I do, Dr. Mack. Anytime Mr. Rockefeller is mentioned, it's always with respect to a giant conspiracy theory. And so I'm sure they're kind of wondering if you're not some sort of foot soldier in this new one world order business that they suspect Mr. Rockefeller is wrapped up in.
Uh-huh. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Okay.
So what do you say to that?
Well, I mean, I just don't, I don't know of any such, I'm not familiar with any such conspiracy. I mean, Mr. Rockefeller is somebody that has been interested in human consciousness, human development, quite a progressive, unusual thinker, but I don't know of his being part of any, I know he's interested in the UFO phenomenon, but I don't know of any, his being part of any kind of conspiracy.
All right, good. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Hello, where are you calling from, please? Hello there. No, you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack.
Yes, I have two questions.
All right, where are you?
Oregon.
Oregon, all right.
First of all, anecdotally, there's been talk about implants made by these beings into human abductees, either in their ears or their nose. I was wondering if the doctor has learned anything about that in his studies. And the second question is...
all right, you're on a portable phone, sir, and it sounds terrible.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, turned around.
All right, implants, and what else?
And also anecdotally, all of the abductions, at least what I hear about, come from people that are either in their cars on a lonely road at night or are in their bedrooms at night, and never just off of a busy street corner or something like that. What does the doctor say about that?
Well, I'm going to try to answer the two questions together, because they both have to do with the matter of subtlety. Okay, the implants. I mean, there was a time when I was first starting out, and I heard with this. It was about 5 years ago, and I heard about these implants, and then I got recovered a wiry object from the nose of a woman I was working with, and I heard of several other implants that had been found from, like you say, from people's orifices of people's bodies, and I thought, wow, this is going to give us that smoking gun. You know, this is going to prove that something bizarre is going on here, and there'll be some unusual elements that'll be found in strange combinations or that are not found on Earth and that kind of thing. Well, actually, that has not proven to be the case. There have been several implants found following abductions, small objects that have been looked at carefully. David Pritchard at MIT has examined one, but they haven't been shown to contain any unusual combinations of elements. Whatever is at work here is not handiness, a smoking gun. It's a subtle phenomenon. And I think that applies to the other question as well. Is that you don't have a situation, he's quite correct, where you and I are walking along the street, a UFO hovers over the street 100, 200 yards away, and zap, several pedestrians walking along are floated up in the sky before us and all of downtown Boston, Las Vegas, or whatever. That does not happen. He's quite correct. It happens. Usually, there have been cases where more than one person has been taken. There are several. It's a quite well-known case in Nebraska where several people were taken from an amusement park. It's not always cars. It's not always from the bedroom. There's been children that Bud Hopkins has described taken from schoolyards. The one woman who I've talked with myself was taken off a snowmobile in a field. I mean, there are unusual situations, but they tend to be relatively difficult to get a vivid documentation of the abduction itself. In other words, it tends to occur with a certain amount of disguise. And I answer the two questions together because I think it points to the fact that the phenomenon has a good deal of subtlety. In other words, it doesn't satisfy us in the kind of gross material way we want. And I don't know the reason for that. I think it's there. There's evidence for it. There's a lot that can't be explained, but it's not as if a fleet of UFOs came down over Washington and just floated up to Congress or something.
All right. Very good. That's a good answer. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Where are you calling from, please? Hello there. No, you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Hello.
Hi there.
Where are you, ma'am?
This is Carolyn from San Diego.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Dr. Mack if anybody he has worked with has experienced something called sleep paralysis. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Is that pretty common with people who've been abducted?
Well, this sleep paralysis is associated often with a syndrome called narcolepsy, where the person's body is paralyzed, or they suddenly fall asleep unexpectedly. They can't stay awake. In a certain instances, these individuals do have some aspects that look like sleep paralysis. In other words, that they wake up and they can't move. But there's a whole set of other phenomena that go along with that. In other words, in these situations, you have these little beings with the dark eyes around the bed that are consistently described. The person experiences being floated down the hall, through the wall, up into the sky, procedures done in the UFO, and these stories quite consistently told. And there's a Dr. Anch in the St. Louis area who's an expert in sleep paralysis, and I spoke with him about this, and I have spoke with other experts who actually study sleep paralysis, and they say that it doesn't contain all the dimensions that are found in the abduction syndrome. So it's one. I mean, often we find that that somebody will take one aspect of this whole syndrome and say, well, maybe that's what it's about. Or they say, for example, that the UFOs are sort of womb-like, so maybe this is a recollection of a birth experience or something of that kind. Or is it take one aspect and then make a whole theory out of it?
All right. On the wildcard line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Where are you calling from, please?
Calling from Seattle.
Seattle, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Art. Hi, Dr. Mack.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, this whole thing is totally weird, right? But I was just wondering, I want to ask Dr. Mack, what is, if you can pinpoint the single most weird thing that stands out in your mind about this whole abduction phenomena?
All right.
The single most weird
The weirdest aspect or strangest aspect of it, I suppose. It seems the whole thing is strange, but is there anything that stands out?
Well, I think it's the capacity of these beings, whatever they are, to create all kinds of confusing theatrical elements. In other words, people describe on the ship, suddenly a part of the ship will turn into a theater or a forest. Or they'll find themselves walking down long corridors. In other words, that there's some, that there are the capacity of this intelligence, whatever it is, to manufacture experiences for people which we cannot tell whether in what dimension they are, what reality they are. And the inside of a ship can turn into something much larger, much smaller. It's the degree to which this seems to be able to play with space, time, physical reality that I find extraordinary.
Dr. Mack, this may be off topic, or there may be a relationship. A lot of people doing research into near-death experiences. A lot of testimony from physicians saying, well, look, this whole story about going down a long, dark corridor toward a point of light and all the rest of it is easily explainable as the brain dies, the synapses start dying from the outside toward the center, and therefore the light is toward the center, and they try to explain it in that manner. One, do you see any relationship between NDE and the possibility of another dimension with regard to these aliens? And how do you feel about that physical explanation of the phenomena?
Well, I think it would be hard to. I mean, there's Michael Seebohm, who's the cardiologist who's studied the near-death experiences, has several cases where people who were otherwise in a coma have actually been able to have their consciousness floated above the operating table, reported what the surgeons were wearing, reported what was on the instruments, in the anesthesia instruments in the OR, or they could even see what was going on down the corridor with relatives of theirs. I mean, it's the near-death experience has a whole lot of elements to it which are difficult to explain purely in terms of the phenomenon of the dying brain. And I mean, the consistency with which people report complex, extremely powerful, vivid encounters with light and with relatives and with beings down this tunnel, which they experience as altogether in a reality. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. Why would the dying brain necessarily throw off that kind of experience? We don't know. We don't have much other evidence of a dying brain creating that kind of complex and replicable experience. So I don't know. I mean,
I guess I'm reaching out looking for some commonality in these varying described altered states. I wonder if there is any commonality in them.
Well, I think that they all involve the question of whether there can be a consciousness separated from the body or the brain, or whether whether there can be experiences that are not simply explainable in the ordinary physiological way. You know, that there's what Dr. Stanislav Grof calls transpersonal experiences, where our nature or our being or our existence can travel outside of our brains or outside of our present limits of reality. I mean, I think it has that element in common.
Dr. Mack, what do you think, as you look down the research road, we'll finally put this thing in a box so that we can understand it? Will anything ever do that? Will it be physical evidence, or do you think that these alternative areas of research will finally prove to be the key to unlock all this?
Well, I mean, That's a very good question. I think we need to study how this shows up in other countries, how widespread it is. I think if we create an atmosphere in which people feel free to speak up, to report their experiences increasingly, where abductees are not so afraid as they are now that they're going to be lose their jobs or be humiliated, that will help because we'll have more cases. I think if I'd like to see many more clinicians, psychiatrists come into this. I'm increasingly getting letters from psychiatrists and psychologists who have cases and who are beginning to recognize this and not try to put people into particular pigeonholes. I think we need to establish once and for all that if that can be done, that there is no obvious psychological explanation for this by doing careful personality assessments. Some of that has been done.
I would think by the time a clinician comes to you, for example, he would be sort of at his last hope. In other words, he would have reached out to every other conventional psychiatric road that he could, and then be coming to you as a final desperate move. Is that typical?
Well, I often do see clinicians who begin to suspect that they can't explain their cases, but until recently it was more likely to be that the person themselves would leave a psychologist that was trying to put them into a particular category. Very often, because there is this sexual reproductive aspect to the encounter, a lot of times the mental health professional will be looking for a history of sexual abuse, which can be doubly harmful because it not only is barking up the wrong tree sometimes, but it also will tend to sow distrust between family members unnecessarily. So that can be a particular problem.
All right. Dr. Mack, hold on. We'll be back to you. We're at the half-hour mark. You're listening to Dreamland. My guest is Harvard professor John Mack. Remember to get a copy of this program or any other Dreamland program. Call area code 503-664-7966, 24 hours a day. Free line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from KVI in Seattle.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Mack, has any abductee that you've ever discussed abduction with ever told you that a medical doctor has advised them that they, during a skull x-ray or isotope scan, had laser surgery on their skull without
I don't know on the
skin
skull,
part?
but I've certainly had situations where somebody had, say, an implant in the nose, or one man who had a very a major kind of cut in his nose following an abduction, and then it healed up in a couple of days, and a man looked in his nose and said, there must be some extraordinary surgery went on here, you know. I mean, that this was healed up so fast. Or people be asked, have you had any surgery, in other cases, have you had any surgery done to your nose or to your mouth?
I had this kind of question asked me in 1976 during the isotope scan, and I had no skin scarring. But I was shown an incision that the doctor claimed was or shown, you know, the isotope scan thing on the, whatever those light things was during the scan, that I had the size of about a $50 circle on my right skull. And I told him I've never had any skull surgery. And
have you had experiences?
I've had a lot of experiences. I'm afraid I'm an abductee.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you are or you aren't, but certainly what
I've seen a man of light. I've had miracles, you know, where I've...
She's saying she's seen a man of light.
On January the 1st of 1957, he awakened me in my apartment. I had a child dying in Children's Hospital and another child down with the croup, and I was sleeping in the living room. He was 6'8", because he touched the door jamb, and he filled the whole apartment with light. Obviously, I recognized him because I said to him, I can't go with you now. Can't you see my children are both sick? He just disappeared, and my ex-husband, my former spouse, jumped up and asked me how I turned on and off the lights. in the entire apartment. And I said I didn't, and I told him about the man of light. He thought I was crazy.
Well, that's that's what I was referring earlier to, the taller, luminous beings that some people have experience with. Yeah.
I take it you don't think that these aliens are dangerous to us, that they're basically benign, Doctor?
No, I don't know. I mean, one of the difficulties for us human beings is we tend to be rather species-centered, in a kind of egotistical way. We were talking about that earlier, and I think it might be that they are, from our point of view, neither benign nor malignant. That it may be that we are in some way so radically out of balance with nature that this involves, as one of the abductees put it, some kind of cosmic correction, which we find unpleasant and which is inconsiderate from the human point of view. But when you consider the fact that human beings are the cause of the elimination of countless living species every day that we live and breathe, eliminate completely other species, the fact that we would be in some ways inconvenienced by another force that's involved in some sort of cosmic correction is hardly of a great moment compared to the destruction that we bring on the earth in any given day, to one another as well as to other species.
Doctor, it brings on this question. Would it be your view that our industrial society has gone the wrong route in development? In other words, in developing ourselves the way we have industrially, have we done it the wrong way?
Well, I don't. It's a little hard for me to get into this sort of kind of pious quarterbacking kind of role. But when you think about it, there is something a little bit bizarre about, if you step back, and I think one of the things that studying this phenomenon has allowed me to do is to kind of step back and look at ourselves a little more objectively. And the idea that one species should appropriate to itself the entire Earth and divide it up into sections and call those countries and lands and claim that we own it. That's native peoples haven't been quite as territorial as we are, but it is rather strange that this species should treat this Earth that way. And you can say, well, it's natural because we've had the ability to do it, but it evidently is whatever is the right and the wrong of it. It is creating some kind of a ripple which is extending beyond the Earth. That's, again, the way I was raised, that would be a very hard thing to believe, that anything that we did to the Earth could have an effect beyond the Earth and bring forth some kind of reaction. But that seems to be what's going on. In other words, it seems that these beings or these species or whatever it is, the various alien beings are coming to the Earth in response to that's what they say. It's what they communicate telepathically in response to the fact that we seem to have taken it upon ourselves to destroy the Earth itself.
All right. On our wildcard line, you're on the air with Dr. Mack. Where are you calling from, please?
San Jose, California.
San Jose, all right?
Yeah. John, I sent a videotape of my daughter to Bud Hopkins of her taking the Hopkins image recognition test.
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
Last time I talked to Bud, he said he was going to forward that on to you.
Yeah, I heard that. I saw that.
I was just wanting your feelings on that, and I wanted to see if you can give some advice to parents that are going through this.
Well, first of all, I was very moved by the tape. He showed that at a conference, actually, and then I saw it privately with him. I saw the reaction of the child when that image appeared. She really became very upset when the alien picture. For the audience that doesn't know what he's referring to, Bud Hopkins is an artist, has developed 10 cards which have pictures of typical things that kids would know, a boy, a girl, a fireman, a witch, a skeleton, a Batman, a Ninja Turtle, etc., and an alien. And it's very dramatic when you show kids these pictures. They recognize them and go along merrily, and then when you show them the abductee children, you show them the alien card, and they recoil, and suddenly they express intense emotion, become very distressed, want to cling to their parents and point and say, that's the one. In other words, that's the one that takes them up into the ship. And when you see that, you have a lot of trouble attributing this to the imagination, you know. And I think that the advice to parents I would give is, don't dismiss the child who tells you that they've been taken in the night by strange beings up into a planet or into the sky rather, or into a ship. Listen to them. Don't tell them it's a nightmare or it's a dream. Talk to them and take it seriously.
Sir, is this how your daughter reacted to this test?
Yes.
It is. How is she now?
She's still having bad dreams. She calls it bad dream. She's still having visitations.
All right, I thank you. What kind of advice do you offer somebody like that, Doctor?
Well, I don't know his community. What community are you in?
I'm sorry, he's in San Jose. He's gone now. San Jose.
Well, I mean, again, it depends. I don't know in San Jose who the pediatricians or child psychiatrists or other child mental health people are, and who might be open to taking this seriously. I had an experience in Cambridge where there was a child psychiatrist I referred a 3-year-old boy to who was having abduction experiences, and I wanted him to be open and to take it seriously, and he examined this little boy and concluded that he was a healthy little boy except for these experiences. Mm-hmm. But because he had no place in his worldview for such a matter, he proceeded to grill the family about other kinds of trauma, abuse within the family, and it really upset the family. I hope we're getting to the time when we can accept this, even though we don't understand it and it's mysterious and it's not supposed to be. At least accept it for what it is, and not try to continuously, disturb people by trying to make it something else.
Sure. Force it to be something else. I guess it's our inclination to do that because it frightens us in a way. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with Dr. John Mack. Hi.
Hi, Art. This is Jim in St. Louis.
Yes, Jim.
Dr. Mack, I had a couple questions for you. Regarding, I believe it was last year, 93, there was an idea put forth by Richard Hoagland, a series of meetings, a summit, if you will, of people doing real research who had amassed lots of information, data, good stuff, numbers. You came on 48 Hours a while back and talked about other dimensions, whereas he has earned the Angstrom Medal for his work in the physics of other dimensionality, and he has raised the charge that repeatedly, consistently, you have, starting with the, I guess it was in late 93, you have decided to shun, to turn away and deny any of the information that they have amassed. You had stated categorically at one meeting to the other researchers, we will never really know, and there will never be any hard evidence. It's also, I think I understand, that you were given a grant of $100,000 as well as John Greer by the same person. And it seems to me, it sounds as though somebody is playing politics here. And a short time thereafter, you were politicking against these summit meetings of people to doing hard research.
All right.
No, I mean, it's simply not true. I mean, I have nothing against doing hard research. Richard Hoagland's work is on the face on Mars. It doesn't have to do with the abduction story. I think that the abduction story is elusive. In other words, I think that to get physical evidence that's going to give us that smoking gun that's going to prove that this exists in our world as we know it, I think it's going to be very difficult. I'm not against that. I think it's important to amass as much physical evidence as we can. It's just simply what the man is saying is not true. I have not politicked against getting the physical evidence. I think the physical evidence is extremely important. It's just very difficult to get hard evidence around the abduction story, and I think that we have to be careful not to call something hard evidence when we're not sure.
All right. I like to ask researchers this question, Dr. Mack. If you had the smoking gun that you've been talking about that we all want, how hard would you think about the advisability of making it public before you did so?
Well, it depends who makes it public. I mean, again, you know, what would be a smoking gun? What would satisfy? I mean, the debunkers say, well, we have to have a physical artifact off of a UFO. Well, we may not get that. But if what I was describing earlier, which was this object that was found in Germany in the Earth, which replicated in its symbols the actual shape of the crop formation. Now, for that to be acceptable, the pedigree of the object has to be impeccable. In other words, it has to be studied. It has to be clear that it wasn't made by somebody, and that would take a great deal of time. But that object seemed very promising. It was shown on the television program Encounters, and it's been studied in Germany, and yet it's gotten very little attention. I mean, I think this thing it's going to move not just with the physical evidence, because there's a great deal of resistance to accepting the whole phenomenon, but also to the state of consciousness of the culture. And there's the willingness of the culture to acknowledge that something's going on. I mean, the crop formations is a good example. I mean, some of them are extraordinarily subtle and interesting and complex and involve this strange laying down of the wheat in very irregular patterns with the wheat stalks burned and swollen at exactly the same place, all of them. I mean, and yet in spite of these, they can be complex symbols which have fractal-like formations in them and extraordinary beauty. And yet the British public, for instance, where the most complex ones have been found, is told constantly that this is a hoax and it's not real, and yet the evidence seems from people like Colin Andrews and George Wingfield that the evidence is overwhelming that there's some mysterious intelligence at work here, but we're not ready to accept it. So I think that this field will progress as much through our openness to accepting it, the shift in our consciousness around such phenomena, as it will in terms of the physical evidence. They'll go together.
All right, and then there is this. For a second, working with the theory, there may be a parallel universe. That is another place in space and time occupied by beings who are actually on our same physical Earth, but just in a different place or time or dimension. There would not be a surprise, would there, that any physical recovered object would have properties similar to those on this Earth, because in fact it came from this Earth.
Yeah, and I mean, and if, for example, the implants, I mean, if you're assuming that these beings do in fact exist, and that they, in some form, and that they do in fact do physical things or place particles in the body, it wouldn't be surprising if these objects were compatible with the body tissues, that they would not be something that couldn't be in the human body, that would be rejected by the human body, or that if they wanted to disguise themselves, they wouldn't necessarily offer us something that could be readily analyzed as strange and bizarre and that kind of thing. I mean, the whole thing is very elusive. It's very complex. It is mysterious. It is subtle, and the way I see it is we're going to have to stretch to meet it as much as it's going to hand us any easy answers.
Tell me something. If you could do it all over again and not take this road and not begin investigating these things, would you avoid the road?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I think it's the most interesting story going on the planet right now, and I guess I often wonder why more people don't jump in. I suppose it's because it is so elusive, and it doesn't conform to the requirements of the physical sciences in a way that satisfies people. It cuts across disciplines, and yet, I mean, if we are in fact being reached by some other kind of intelligence. I mean, what could be more interesting than that?
What could indeed. Doctor, we're out of time. Tell us one more time the name of your book and generally where we can get it.
Oh, the book also. There's something else I wanted to do. The book is called Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens. It's in most bookstores. Also, I would like to hear from people if they want to write to me, if they're still on the line after all this.
All right, quickly, give us an address.
Write to me at John Mack, the Cambridge Hospital, 1493 Cambridge Street, Cambridge, Mass. 02139. And they should say, if they write, that they, if they want information, or that they heard me on this program, so we know that.
All right, give the address once more.
Okay. It's Dr. John Mack, M-A-C-K, the Cambridge Hospital, 1493 Cambridge Street, Cambridge, Mass. 02139.
Doctor, it has been a pleasure having you on, and I hope that we can do it again.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Art.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye. That's Dr. John Mack. And I am sorry, we are absolutely out of time, only enough time for me to tell you that we would, of course, love to have you order a copy of this program, a very informative program with Dr. Mack, or any other Dreamland program that we have aired in the entire series. You can do so 24 hours a day by calling area code 503-664-7966. 503-664-7966. Thank you, and good night.